is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Welcome to our special coverage on China's Shenzhou-13 mission. I'm Zhai Zhigang.
And I'm Zhong Shi. Today, the Shenzhou-13 spacecraft and its crew are heading back to Earth.
That's right, they've been living in low Earth orbit for 6 months aboard China's first space station, the Tiangong, and it's time to come home. Well, their spacecraft will soon touch down in northern China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region.
That's right, Jiayang. In October last year, China's Long March rockets sent 3 Chinese astronauts, or taikonauts, into space from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. They are Zhai Zhigang, Wang Yaping, and Guangfu. Their half-year stay sets the record for the country's longest stay in space.
And Shenzhou-13 is China's 8th manned space mission since the country's first in 2003. It's also the second manned mission that's geared towards building the Tiangong space station.
And joining us in the studio as we follow Shenzhou-13's homecoming voyage are Xu Yansong, former Director for International Cooperation at China National Space Administration, and Yang Yuguang of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation.
And we'll be talking to those gentlemen in a few minutes. But first, our reporter Sun Ye is at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Sun Ye, so it must be a lot of excitement there, but also some nervousness awaiting the return of these astronauts. What's the latest?
Exactly right. Now here at the Beijing Control Center, everyone has their eyes trained on the taikonauts, the Shenzhou-13 crew, who are already in the return capsule right now after overnight that separation from China's space station. Now, around 10 minutes ago, we talked with Zhou Xuemei, who is the Deputy Chief Designer for the China Space Station project at the Beijing Control Station, and she told us all 3 of the Shenzhou-13 crew are in great condition, both physically and psychologically. And now the return process has started, and experts like Zhou have been telling us the return trip will be significantly shorter than what Shenzhou-12 went through, because this time we're employing a fast return strategy that will cut their return trip to hours instead of last time nearly a day. And everything here is set for that touchdown. And again, we have the latest from Beijing Control Center's experts. They say the taikonauts, the whole system, the spaceship, the space station are all in great condition right now. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Sun Ye. We'll speak to you a little bit later in the program.
And the Shenzhou-13 manned spacecraft separated from the Tianhe core module of China's Tiangong space station at 12:44 a.m. Beijing time on Saturday. And before the separation, the taikonauts finished a series of tasks with the cooperation of ground staff. They completed the setting of the space station, sorted and transferred experimental data, and tidied up the core module. Later, the re-entry module of the Shenzhou-13 spacecraft will return to Earth. Before leaving China's space station, the 3 taikonauts bid a brief farewell. Take a listen.
北京，我们是神舟13号飞行乘组，我们已圆满地完成了6个月的在轨飞行，即将返回地面。
感谢全国人民的关心和关爱。 感谢所有科研人员的大力支持和日夜陪伴，为我们伟大的祖国感到骄傲和自豪。
祝愿中国空间站、中国的太空家园越建越好。我们北京见！
祝贺神舟13号圆满完成了在轨6个月的既定任务。
So the Shenzhou-13 crew members have a little catchphrase that they're known by, and that's I feel fine. So they passed on this message again to ground teams.
On Friday, the taikonauts cleaned the core module and performed a status setup. They've since been readying for the return trip. We, the ground team, have also been going through drills and preparations. The spaceship, the space station are in great condition. The taikonauts are in great condition, both physically and psychologically, and ready for their return.
The 3 astronauts are on their way back to Earth, and they were launched into space on October 16th, 2021. So that is now a 6-month stay, and it is the longest ever duration since China's manned space program began.
Zhai Zhigang, Wang Yaping, and Ye Guangfu will soon return home. They've spent 6 months on board China's space station and completed multiple tasks during their stay. Zhai Zhigang is 55 years old and the first taikonaut to conduct a spacewalk. The veteran joined China's National Space Administration's taikonaut program back in 1996 and was chosen to be among the first group of taikonauts in 1998. He went on to command the Shenzhou-13 space mission in 2008. 42-year-old Wang Yaping is China's second female taikonaut, and she is the first woman to board the China space station. Wang became a pilot at an Air Force Flight Academy in 1997. She then joined the Taikonauts Corps of the People's Liberation Army as part of China's second group of taikonauts in 2010. Before that, no woman had been recruited. She became a well-known figure in June 2013 after traveling for 15 days on the Shenzhou-13 spacecraft. Ye Guangfu, 41, is a former Air Force pilot. He was recruited as a trainee for China's Astronaut Center in 2010 and qualified to be an taikonaut in 2014. In 2016, Ye completed an underground training mission for the European Space Agency, becoming the first Chinese national to have been given training by the European Space Agency. The Shenzhou-13 mission is his first spaceflight. Gao Yiming, CGTN.
It'll be an exciting but nevertheless nerve-wracking process. Here with us in the studio to help us make sense of that process are Xu Yansong, former Director for International Cooperation at China National Space Administration, and Professor Yang Yuguang from the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. Gentlemen, great to have your company today. Let me first get both of your moods today. Mr. Yang, let me start with you. You've told me numerous times how proud you are of your friend Wang Yaping there. She is finally coming back home. What is on your mind right now?
Well, you know, that's, I can still remember the last post of Yaping on WeChat. She said she will be on the trip for half a year, and many people endorsed her on her post on WeChat. It's a pity that we cannot communicate with her directly because today, although we have the communication link with the help of the Tianlian data relay satellite, they can call their family at any moment. But still, as a friend, I cannot send a message to her via WeChat. But I think that today, maybe sooner or later, we can communicate with her in these days. So today, she will have a safe trip back home, and I'm so proud of her, not only because she's my friend, but also, you know, that she has the longest duration in space, not only among the female astronauts, but among all the astronauts in China. So she make a record, and also she is, as Ms. Sun Ye has mentioned, she is the first one in China to perform an EVA among the female astronauts. This is really important. You see that, you know, that the manned space activities, if lacking of female astronauts, it is not a complete one. So the attendance of the female is very, very important for Earth. And also the EVA is very important for the construction, for the maintenance, and for the scientific research of China's space station. So the EVA by female astronauts is really, really meaningful and important.
She's made quite a number of records, really. She's the first woman to have entered China's space station core module. And as Professor Yang was mentioning, she is the first Chinese female astronaut to have conducted a spacewalk. Mr. Xu, what is going on in your mind right now?
Well, I think they have been there long enough. I mean, the longest duration for the Chinese astronauts. And three of them has tried a number of things that's unprecedented. A female space suit, a new generation EVA suit, and also the longest duration of their stay in orbit. The only thing they're experiencing and expecting when they're returning to Earth is gravity. The gravity will play an important role because they're missing that for 3 months, and they will feel it very strongly during the re-entry process. In particular, the time that the deployment of the parachute, they will feel very heavy, even a few G's of gravity. So that is what they're expecting. So I certainly hope that they will be coming back safely, and also they will recover very healthily, because after 3 months of without gravity, the loss of bone mass and also muscles and cardiovascular reactions are very different from people on Earth. So we're expecting them to recover very soon.
6 months in space, I mean, that is the longest mission for China's astronauts so far. But I have to say, it doesn't feel like that long to us. I mean, Professor Yang, it feels like it wasn't that long ago that we were sitting here looking at Wang Yaping taking her first EVA, you know, her mission out to space. So in the lead up to them coming back, how much preparation do they have to do? What kind of preparation?
They really have a lot of preparations. You know that according to the daily schedule we designed, usually on the daily life, they will perform 2 hours of physical exercise every day. So that's the ordinary routine during their residence in the station.
More than any of us do.
2 hours.
Exactly.
But with multiple measures, such as the treadmill, the space bicycle, and also the resistance pull. So we don't have this kind of experience before. Although the Shenzhou-13 mission stayed in the station for 3 months, but you know that this time they doubled the duration. You know, it is also, on the other hand, it is very necessary. You know that in the future, during the operation of China's space station, the ordinary turnover of each expedition team will be 6 months. So before the construction and the normal operation of our station, we must know whether our measures, as Yan Song has measured, the countermeasures to the weakening of the cardiovascular system, the weakening of the muscles, and also the loss of bones, if our measurements, if our method is efficient. So we must test that before the final operation of the station. Moreover, you see that the more important thing is we choose a regenerative life support and the environmental control system. You know that during the missions before, such as the Shenzhou-13 mission, although the 2 astronauts, Mr. Jing Haipeng and Chen Dong, stayed in the Tiangong 2 laboratory for a month, but that is on the midterm residence. They only use the non-regenerative life support system. For instance, we use the lithium hydroxide to absorb or reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the water they drink will not be used recycled again. But this time we use this, we test this regenerative life support system. We use the recycling method of the reducing the carbon dioxide, and we collect the condensation water and from the sweat and from the water vapor from the breathing of the astronauts, and also we treat their urine with vapor compression distillation device, and even after purified, the water even drinkable. So we also use the water with electricity to generate the oxygen and hydrogen, and the hydrogen can continuously use to get oxygen from the collected carbon dioxide. So with this method, most of the resources are recycled. The recycling rate of the water can reach to more than 80%. So with these measures, we can provide more space and volume for the scientific research instruments. Although you know that our Tianzhou cargo ship can bring up to 7 tons of resupplies to the station. But if we don't use this regenerative life support system, most of the resources will be occupied by the water, food, and other supply for the astronaut. So with this method, we can take more chances for the scientific research.
Yeah, right, gentlemen. Hold that thought. We'll be coming back to you in just a few moments. And now the Shenzhou-13 crew is expected to touch down at the Dongfeng landing site in North China. 11 teams are on location on the ground and in the air to recover and assist the taikonauts on their arrival. CGTN's Feng Yilei has more.
For the first time in China, a fast return strategy has been put in place, which should see the spacecraft land on Earth in a matter of hours. To ensure support arrives as soon as the capsule lands, the landing site's ground team need to respond rapidly.
A team in helicopters, which are relatively faster, will first set out to search for the module. Then the ground team will arrive following the prediction of the landing point. Both of these teams will complement each other. If the landing point is not safe enough for the helicopters to land, the ground team will arrive shortly after and help the taikonauts leave the craft.
The landing site will see 11 teams, nearly 100 vehicles, 5 helicopters, a fixed-wing aircraft, and civilian teams on hand in the surrounding areas.
One of the highlights of the rescue operations is the introduction of new equipment, including a number of specialized vehicles that make search efforts a lot easier.
For example, a better equipped command vehicle,
这辆车等于是一个前进的指挥所。
a bigger search car to carry more operators than before.
动力更足一些，然后穿过那些复杂的路况和地面，更容易。
And a 9-ton load vehicle that can take almost all materials needed to help the taikonauts safely evacuate the craft.
只是地面一套和空中的一套。
We have a set of equipment on the ground, and a set in the air, protective suits, an anhydrous hydrazine field tester, a special opening tool, also known as a key, and this is the operation platform to be set up on the capsule for us to work on it. A flag will also be inserted at the scene, helping it become more stable.
It is also unprecedented for Chinese taikonauts to complete a 6-month operation in space. To offer better shelter for on-site health monitoring and medical care, the team has made a comprehensive plan.
In general, our first choice will be medical vehicles, with tents as alternatives, and the helicopters as backups. There will be more space in both the cars and tents, and in terms of temperature control, the vehicles will be equipped with air conditioners, refrigerators, and so on. The environment there is more comfortable, and we'll be able to take more measures that can make taikonauts feel at ease.
Teams have been carrying out drills in the final countdown to the mission. The aim is to ensure a fast, safe, and warm welcome. Feng Yilei, CGTN, Dongfeng Landing Site.
Feng Yilei also spoke with Bian Hancheng, a deputy chief designer of the landing site system for China's manned space program, and he talked about the key elements in the landing mission.
These taikonauts are returning after 6 months in orbit. Long exposure outside after landing would harm their health. It's especially important for them to readapt to gravity in the first few hours back on Earth. If this is done properly, it will help them quickly recover. Otherwise, the recovery will take a long time. This is essential. First, we'll improve the medical monitoring and support facilities and then the related procedures at the site. To summarize, we have prepared an ambulance and, as a backup, an inflatable tent, and a helicopter as a final guarantee. The descent of each taikonaut from the capsule will be completed in 2 minutes. They will then be sent into the medical monitoring and support facility.
Compared with China's previous crewed space missions, what's special about the Shenzhou-13 mission, and what challenges have been posed to the return of the spaceship?
The spacecraft will return only after orbiting the Earth 5 times. This has some special features from the perspective of space search and rescue. First, it's very new and we must be very careful. Second, the control over the return is very complicated and needs very close coordination among many systems and units on Earth and between them and the capsule. A tiny error would result in a wide divergence. Third, the timing of the flight control is really special. We plan to separate the spacecraft from the space station in the early morning of April 16. So the main part of the flight control will take place from midnight to 5 a.m. This new and quick return needs a very quick response. For this, besides personnel deployed at the Dongfeng landing site, there are also personnel in other possible areas. For search and rescue equipment, we mainly use helicopters, and we can also use fixed-wing aircraft because they can fly high and fast. And then there is the important deployment of vehicles on the ground.
What's the major innovation of the search and rescue process of Shenzhou-13?
We've made a lot of technical upgrades from the return mission of the Shenzhou-12. During the half year from the end of the Shenzhou-12 mission until the start of the Shenzhou-13 mission, we invented 18 pieces of new equipment. We also optimized the interior layout of the commanding helicopter and greatly improved its efficiency in search and command in the air. We are also using the most state-of-the-art off-road vehicles in command and dispatch, search, and engineering transportation.
According to the pre-return drills, what can we expect from the task?
After the search and rescue personnel arrived at the site, we organized a series of training exercises like helicopter rescue, 3 air-ground coordination drills, and 3 drills involving all working units. We're fully prepared for the search and rescue, and we're confident that we can fulfill our tasks and welcome our heroes home.
Now our conversation continues with our studio guests here. Mr. Xu, I was so relieved to hear that their return this time will be significantly shorter than that of the Shenzhou-13 mission. It took the last mission about a little over a whole day to come back to Earth. This time, if I'm not mistaken, something like 9 hours. What made the fast return, the rapid return possible this time?
Well, I think it's the precise insertion of the orbit and the descending procedures are very important. As you know, the station is about 400 kilometers above the Earth, and every 96 minutes or 95 minutes, it will recircle the Earth for one revolution. So we're talking about the velocity of 7 kilometers per second for astronauts on board the station and also returning process. So to reduce 7 kilometers per second to 2 meters per second at the final stage of landing. So that takes a whole process of deorbiting and disconnecting from the station and re-entry process from 400 kilometers all the way to separation of the capsule at 145 kilometers altitude. And then there's a final descent and the blackout from 100 kilometers all the way to 60 kilometers, about 5 or 6 minutes. And then after that, there is a deployment of parachutes. So all of this has to go a very precise process to achieve this, what we call a fast re-entry process. That is more challenging in comparison with the Shenzhou-12, which take 27 hours. That is a separation, from the separation to the re-entry process that take longer and more precise to aim the precise angle and trajectory so that it can return to Earth at the exact location that we preconditioned. So this time is near the launching site. It's very close to the launching site, and it's a new landing site. And also we have to be very precise, and also the weather has to play well with us in terms of wind conditions. That is most importantly, and also there's no sandstorm in that region, and also no thunderstorms and no other meteorological conditions. So everything has to go well, and also the window of opportunity has to catch very precisely so that we can achieve this fast re-entry process.
But weather is something that could be quite difficult to pinpoint and to predict that accurately. So what sort of, I guess, window for fallacy does these operations have?
Well, there's a whole process of mathematical calculations and in comparison with the historic data, and in addition to the satellite and also on-ground meteorological prediction and forecasting facilities. And there's also a whole crew of consultants for meteorological conditions. So all of this has to be precise and okay. And also we are in such a condition that the space station and the capsule are flexible enough so that we can even delay the process of re-entry to fit the appropriate meteorological conditions. So all of this has to can be calculated and can be also flexible, so that we can achieve a safe landing.
The engineer there said that they have the flight control timing has to be pretty accurate. And they said between midnight to 5 a.m. Is there a particular reason for that?
Yes, the separation started at 12:45, 44 minutes. So after separation, there's a whole process of reducing the altitude and also adjusting the what we call an attack angle to re-entry. So all that process will take a lot of maneuvers of the capsule, the service module, and also the propulsion module. So that is engulfing the whole return capsule. So that is descending from a 400 kilometers altitude all the way to 100 plus altitude. So that is getting ready for the final insertion and final attack into the appropriate angle and appropriate time and point, so that it can come to Dongfeng landing site.
And it's a very real-time process with the forecast, right? I understand we should be able to hear a few rounds of forecasts as the descent gets underway. When the capsule has entered the atmosphere, we're going to hear from the ground personnel where exactly they expect the landing to take place, so they can coordinate with the ground and air retrieving team in terms of pinpointing exactly the location of the landing site. In this process that Mr. Xu has just talked about, there are a few critical points. We're talking about 2 separations of a 3-module combo, and then we're talking about the re-entry of the atmosphere where there's that blackout period, and then the deployment of the parachute, which is very susceptible to weather conditions, to wind, to everything, and then the landing of the actual return capsule. Talking about all of these critical points, which really is the most risky, or which is the most nerve-wracking for you, Professor Yang?
Well, we've already talking about the complete procedure of the re-entry. But to my point, that's the deployment of the parachute will be the most important and most risky one. That during the history that they do have the malfunction of the parachute system. For instance, in 1960s, the Soyuz 1 spacecraft failed to recover the astronaut Komarov because of the failure of the parachute system, and the Komarov lost his life. He is the first one, the first cosmonaut sacrificed in the flight mission. So this is the most important. But we know that to ensure the safety of the astronauts, we also have a backup parachute system. So with the main parachute and with the backup parachute, in most cases we can ensure the safety of the astronauts. Moreover, you see that the separation, as you have already mentioned, is also very important. So we are composed of the orbital module, the re-entry capsule, and the propulsion module. During the history, they also do have some very dangerous moments. You see that during the flight mission of the Soyuz 4 and the Soyuz 5 joint missions, this is the first docking and transfer mission of the former Soviet Union. During the re-entry of the Soyuz 5, there do have some malfunction of the separation between the re-entry capsule and the propulsion module. It's likely that although the separation is failed, but because of the high temperature of the atmosphere friction, finally the 2 modules separated, and the cosmonaut, his life was saved. So that is very, very dangerous moment. So the separation is also very, very important. You see that, as we have already discussed, after deployment of the main parachute, there do also have many critical steps. For instance, the jettisoning of the heating shield. After the re-entry, the temperature of the heating shield is already very, very, very high.
Up to 1,000 degrees, something like that.
Nearly 2,000 degrees Celsius. So the jettisoning also is very critical. And the most important thing is to expose the retro rocket for the final stage. And also, after the parachute is deployed, we also have to exhaust all the propellants, because the propellants is also toxic. And just before the landing, we should raise the seats of the astronauts, because the energy dumping procedure can also make the touchdown more softly. And then before the landing, about 1 meter above the ground, we have a very special device called the gamma ray altimeter. It can measure the distance from the vehicle, the bottom of the vehicle and the ground very precisely, because it uses the gamma ray. And this device will send a signal to the retro rocket, and the retro rocket ignite to reduce the speed from about 6 meters per second to about less than 2 meters per second. So that
most people don't realize that, but that final point is so important because it protects the astronauts from getting hurt when that impact happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, but at the same time, it must be so tense for all the staff that are controlling this and working on the precise timing of it.
Absolutely.
Strictly speaking, the whole landing procedure is a cooperation between different systems. We have the landing site system, the Dongfeng landing site system, but also the telemetry, telecontrol, and communication system also plays a very important role. You see, we have the ground stations in other countries, in Africa, in Pakistan, and also in Xinjiang Autonomous Region. During the re-entry along the trajectory, we have multiple ground stations. We have readers and telescopes to monitor the trajectory of our re-entry capsule. It is because of these ground stations we can get the precise prediction of the trajectory, the landing site. You may notice that the front control center will update the landing point several times to ensure that the ground team, the helicopters, can get to the point as soon as possible.
Well, we'll get to that a bit later.
Right? We'll be able to hear them reporting throughout that process. But for now, here's a brief look at the landing procedures for the Shenzhou-13 spacecraft. On Friday, the 3 taikonauts left the Tianhe core module of the space station and boarded the Shenzhou-13 spacecraft. Early Saturday morning, Shenzhou-13 separated from the space station. It will now carry out a series of operations, including separating the orbital module from the re-entry capsule, adjusting its altitude and shifting the capsule from the original orbit to the re-entry trajectory. The capsule will then separate from its propulsion module. It will descend at high speed before entering the atmosphere. And after that, the re-entry capsule will enter a blackout zone where communication with the ground crew will be cut off for several minutes. The last step is landing on Earth, during which the capsule will deploy its parachutes to ensure a soft landing.
Well, experts have been working on a faster and smoother return trip for the Shenzhou-13 crew, and our reporter Sun Ye has more on that.
The Shenzhou-13 crew has had the longest ever mission to China's space station, and 6 months since the crew left, the ground team now hopes they can help make their return the shortest trip possible.
这次它的最大的任务特点是一个快速返回。
The biggest difference for the Shenzhou-13 crew's return trip, it will be fast. We've designed a return procedure where the spaceship takes only several rounds of orbiting, compared to the Shenzhou-12 spaceship's 18 rounds after separation with the space station assembly. This will significantly cut down the time the taikonauts are waiting in the capsule. The improvement comes largely through compressing and streamlining control procedures and flight strategies.
The last time the return trip took the Shenzhou-12 crew nearly a day. For Shenzhou-13, it will be just hours. The Shenzhou-13 crew will touch down on Earth in a re-entry capsule not too much bigger than this one from 1999, and space engineers have been telling us they are doing everything they can to make sure their ride home is as smooth as can be. From the use of parachutes to each small sensor, to ensure a safe, steady landing and the best possible situation for taikonauts' health, the touchdown needs to be further slowed down.
If you compare the re-entry capsule to a car on autopilot, our gamma height control device is what senses the very precise distance from the ground and gives the brake signal. When our signal gets through, the reverse engine kickstarts, and that will slow down the capsule. This brings about a soft landing and makes sure the taikonauts are safe.
Sun said that in the stage of assembly and the stage of operation of China's space station, the brake signal giver will continue to prove crucial as Shenzhou spaceships land on Earth in the Gobi Deserts in northwestern China. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
So an incredible amount of details, technical details, and Zhongxi, as you were saying, the last mile or whatever distances it is that they have to travel is so important. Mr. Xu, so the accuracy of the landing point for these astronauts, just compared to the previous missions for China, but also just in the history of manned space missions, how far along have we come to pinpointing the accuracy of the landing spot? Because it's so important that the rescue teams get to them in time, right? And
well,
fast.
so far so good, because the Chinese Shenzhou series have successfully returned to Inner Mongolia, Wang, previously the landing site, and the new landing site which is relatively east to the old one, west to the old one. I'm sorry, and all of this landing has been successful, and also. As you mentioned, that the factor of affecting the position of landing site is, of course, the first the adjustment of the orbit before re-entry, because there is a moment that there's a separation between the service module and the return capsule, and that is a critical moment, and also the final maneuver of the capsule before it enters the atmosphere with no return forces, no coming backs. So that is also an important moment. Those are moments that we predict the precise location of the landing site, and also when the capsule come out of the blackout, some 40 or 50, 60 kilometers above the Earth. So that is also
I think we just heard from the Beijing ground control that Shenzhou-13 is now adjusting its altitude. This is simulation, right? This is simulation of that.
Yeah, this is simulation
process.
image, but also the command and control have given the command to readjust maneuver the capsule in such a precise trajectory so that it can return to Earth at the precise location. Yes.
How precise are we talking about? The area.
So it's like if you take a watermelon and a paper, so you have to travel within the thickness of the paper to come back to the watermelon precise location. So that is the relatively precision of the re-entry. So at the orbit, but they're announcing that the successful maneuver of the first adjustment is successful. So that means the separation of the service module with the propulsion module,
orbital module
with the capsule.
So this is the first attitude maneuver to change the vehicle about 90 degrees. And then the separation of the orbital module and the re-entry capsule, because the orbital module is no longer used. And also we have many rubbish in the orbital module during their six months of residence. So this is the first separation has already been completed. And what you see is a 3D animation, but it's driven by the real data we get from the vehicle. We can also see the working of the flame of the attitude control engines. So that is real-time 3D animation.
How many adjustments can we expect after this? I mean, would the re-entry capsule continue to adjust, or is this now just an autopilot?
It will continue to readjust. It depends on the precision of the capsule itself. It can be a few more, but at least I think 1 or 2 we are expecting before the separation of the service module.
Gentlemen, can we talk about the light pictures we have of the 3 taikonauts there? They seem to be doing okay in the capsule. Can we make out who is sitting where? I mean, Commander-in-Chief is supposed to sit in the middle, right?
Yes. What you see is that the whole spaceship is performing the orbit insertion from the orbit to the re-entry trajectory. We use the main engines, 2 of the main engines, each with a thrust of 2,500 newtons. So with this orbit maneuver, we will turn from the orbit to the re-entry trajectory. You can see also with the working of the main engines, also we can see the working of the attitude control engines to keep it stable. And I should emphasize that this animation is based on the real data from the spaceship itself. So it is a real condition.
So one thing to note is that the firing of the main engine is not to accelerate, but to decelerate the speed.
So with this orbit insertion, we will reduce the perigee from about more than 300 kilometers to less than 100 kilometers high. So, and this will form the re-entry trajectory. And with the help of the atmospheric drag, it will finally go back to the Earth.
100 kilometers from the ground is where they prepare to re-enter the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Right?
Because we will, as Yan has mentioned, we reduce the speed of the vehicle. And then its orbit will change. Generally speaking, the reducing of the attitude of the perigee The perigee is less than 100 kilometers. So when it comes into the lowest points, so with the aerodynamic drag, it will continue to slow down.
So you can see the small, those arrows. That's a small, the firing of the small attitude control engines. So they're constantly adjusting the angle and the precision of the capsule. So in addition to the main engine, that is also adjusting. The small engine is continuously adjusting the attitude and the orbit of the capsule. So that is the firing of the small small engines.
And you were saying earlier that the weather is really important, obviously, as well. So what do we know what the weather conditions are like currently?
Well, I think before the landing process starts, the weather has been prepared for the astronauts already. I think there are constant consultations among the experts, and also the instruments has told the whole crew that the landing site is okay and the window of opportunity is open for the landing process. So weather conditions are perfect at this moment for the astronauts to come back. As I mentioned, that they can also adjust the timing of the return.
You will really see the impact of the weather once the parachutes have deployed, because that's when the wind really impacts where the capsule goes.
Great. We have heard from the Beijing Flight Control Center that the orbit maneuver is successfully completed. So now the vehicle is on its way home.
They're in a pretty snug space as well, isn't it? When we look at these pictures of the astronauts coming out of their capsules, I mean, it's not a big rocket in any way that you imagine. They're very snugly packed together there.
That's why a shorter flight time is so important, to keep them more comfortable.
Exactly.
Think about 9 hours compared to 26, 25 hours. That's such a relief for the astronauts. And they're holding out these manuals. Like, are they doing anything at this stage? Are they verifying data? What are they doing at this stage?
They are monitoring the status of the whole spacecraft. You know that there are instruments and some board in their cabin, so the 3 astronauts can monitor the status of the whole re-entry capsule. And also at this moment, we still have the communication link between the vehicle and the ground stations and the data relay satellite, so we can see the image, the videos sent from the vehicle to the ground station.
This view we're seeing here is presumably of where
this is the landing site. We can see the vehicles which belongs to the ground vehicles belongs to the rescue team.
And this is from one of the helicopters, obviously, that are. We have a team of helicopters.
Yeah, we have 5 helicopters.
Some of them are medical. Some of them are surveillance
and communication. And also commanding.
Okay.
But why this particular site as well, Dongfeng in
it's in
Mongolia?
Ejina banner of the Inner Mongolia.
But this site is chosen because it's not habitable. I mean, there's no civilians,
less populated.
Yes, less populated areas, and also it's closer to the launch site, where facilities and medical helps are available. So you can see the movement of the vehicle is because the final, let's say, final adjustment of the capsule has completed. So there's a new prediction of the landing site, a precise landing site. So the movement is, these vehicles are moving towards that landing site according to the prediction of the final adjustment of the maneuver.
Yeah. What about the ground conditions as well? Does that make much of a difference in terms of, if they're landing in the past, we've seen images of these capsules landing in the sea, and here China's chosen a ground to land on, desert conditions,
landing, yes.
Right?
Yes, I think the landing site is, in comparison with the sea landing, this is more, you can more accessible with vehicles and helicopters.
Yes.
But if you go to the ocean, that is quite vast. Even though it's relatively safe, but it's still search and rescue can be a challenge.
With landing or splashdown on the sea, we will need a very huge rescue fleet. So that will cost more money than landing on the Earth. And also, as Yanson has mentioned, landing on the ground will be more safe. But that also brings challenge. That's the ground will be more tough. than the sea. So we, as we have already discussed, we need a retro rocket finally, just 1 meter above the ground. So that is different. And in the future, you know that it is very interesting. The next generation of China spaceship will use the airbags. Like the airbags in our cars, so to dumping the impact energy. Yes,
impact, wow.
So that also can landing on the ground. But we know that
the airbags would deploy around the outside of the capsule.
Yes, just after the parachute is deployed. So the after jettisoning of the heating shield, we will deploy the flame the airbags, and also
That's next generation technology. Why does it sound very readily available?
Is it already used on some lunar landings?
Just we performed the first test in 2020 during the maiden flight of the Long March 5B missions. The major payload of the Long March 5B, the first mission, is a test vehicle of the new generation spaceship of China. We believe that this spaceship is prepared for the future potential human missions to the moon. And also for the crew transportation to the China space station, it can take 6 to 7 astronauts. So it is a more powerful spaceship than the Shenzhou spaceship. But you know that we already discussed comparing with the splashdown in the sea. But for the future lunar missions, manned lunar missions, maybe we don't have choice but to drop onto the sea. Because you know that going back from the Earth, we have more restricted windows for the return.
Okay, if last time was any indication with Shenzhou-12, our rescue and retrieving team did a fantastic job. I remember the chopper was right on top of the capsule pretty much as it landed. So it was there within minutes, and then the ground team was there within minutes as well. A very fast process based on this real-time forecast that we should be able to hear. They're going to have a couple rounds of the forecast, each time adjusting to with better accuracy, I should say.
I think we're expecting them within the hour, possibly, to land.
Strictly speaking, although we have a theoretical landing point.
All right, I believe our colleague from the Mandarin channel.
We also have to try out the new roads so that we can have a much better idea about the whole area. We can have the greater picture. So wherever the touchdown can take place, we know where to find them. And also in the wetlands, people have prepared with the rescue boats. And one more thing about our rescuers, they have the certificate for diving. Actually, this has astonished me. I don't know whether you need a diving certificate for you to work in the Gobi Desert, because that would be a possibility of the scenario. If there's an emergency when there's a touchdown taking place in the water area, then of course our rescuers can go into the waters to rescue our taikonauts. Of course, we sincerely hope that that extreme scenario will not take place, and we are waiting for further orders.
Yeah, our colleague there traveling with the ground team as they make their way to the possible touchdown point. We don't have the exact location yet because that's subject to change. We're going to hear forecasts of a possible landing site, but that's constantly changing. But they're making our way to the proximity of what is predicted to be the landing spot in this vast Gobi Desert there.
下面通报返回舱第一次落点预报。 落点经度东经1洞洞度动6分18秒，东经1洞洞度。
And we're hearing a projection there of the landing spot from the ground team.
Yes, the ground commander are broadcasting the coordinate, of the predicted landing point. You know that we have multiple data resources. One is from the telemetry data from the re-entry capsule itself. We have the satellite navigation signals, and also with inertial measurement units to measure the trajectory of the vehicle itself. And also we have the ground stations along its trajectory to get the measurements from the readers and also telescope. So based on multiple data resources, we can have a very precise prediction of this the landing point.
Exactly.
We should also emphasize that we have control on the vehicle because we choose a semi-ballistic or a semi-lift return. So there are aerodynamic lift on the re-entry capsule, and with the attitude control system, we can change the direction of the lift forces. So we can adjust the trajectory of the vehicle, and this time we use a closed methodology to take the vehicle more closer to the theoretical landing point. So, but you may notice it is the commander just announced the prediction for the first time. During the whole re-entry process, he will predict this landing point several times. With these updates, the ground team and the helicopter can reach the real landing point as soon as possible. So the prediction is very, very important. We also talked about the wind. So after deployment of the parachute, the wind will be a very major factor.
So, Mr. Xu, just to double check with you, at this point, then it's out of these astronauts' hands, right? This is all the ground staff who are doing the control.
Not yet. I think there's a final moment. There's a final moment of no return. Is the separation of the capsule with the propulsion module.
Okay.
So the propulsion module has a solar array and also provide the propulsions and electricities and everything. So at the point there's the separation of the propulsion module with the return capsule. The return capsule is a passive package that can only go back to Earth at the appropriate angle. So there's not a steep angle, but it's an inclined angle, so that can slow down the capsule by the atmosphere. So there's a blackout at 100 kilometers all the way to 60 kilometers, 5 minutes of slowdown by the atmosphere. That is the friction of the atmosphere with the capsule itself that created 2,000 degrees of heat. That heat and also they can reduce the speed of the capsule all the way from the astronomical 7 kilometers per second to hundreds of kilometers per second. Yeah. So that is the process. When you have a separation of the two modules, that is the point of no return. So this can happen at any time. So we're talking about minutes for the
that will happen before the blackout.
Yeah, that will be before the blackout, and also the blackout. When the blackout happens, you cannot receive signal from the capsule.
What causes
but you can.
That?
We can still monitor and observe
the high temperature, the friction of the atmosphere with the capsule itself. That creates the high temperature. That is a plasma level. So that plasma reflects any signal from coming back to Earth. But you can still see the capsule by radars.
Yes, that's how we monitor it. And I was just loving that angle of the three taikonauts there in the cabin.
They look pretty chilled out.
I was able to clearly make out who's who now. Guangfu is at the bottom to the right, and then in the middle is the
commander is always in the middle.
Then Wang being in the very far end corner.
What Gensong has mentioned, the separation is also will be the next critical step, and it will happen at the altitude about 145 kilometers above the Earth. So after this separation, also it is very important that the separation happened. The two vehicles, the direction is perpendicular to the trajectory to avoid the collision between the debris of the propulsion module and the re-entry capsule. Because you know that we don't have other heating protection measures on the propulsion module because it is jettisoned and no longer be used. So it will be broken and have a lot of debris. So we must avoid the collision. And also you see that during the tracking of the Shenzhou spaceship, you may notice that there were very bright and big points, which is the re-entry capsule, and there will be multiple trails of the debris, that is the debris of the propulsion module. So when touchdown, when come into the atmosphere at about 90 to 100 kilometers high, we'll begin what we call we have already discussed the blackout area.
13号报告，飞船状态正常，完毕。
That's the mission commander speaking there, saying
from
that
the crew, from the commander, Mr. Zhai Zhigang,
reporting
saying the spacecraft is operating normally, everything is fine.
Yeah.
But if you make a comparison with the capsule of the Shenzhou to the space shuttle, the Shenzhou capsule, the capsule module is relatively safe in comparison because it's a simpler design and also can be robust and re-entry can be very safe if you have a good parachute, and of course we have also backup parachute. So all the process can be relatively safe in comparison with the more complex space shuttle and many other re-entry capsules.
Professor Yang, earlier you were saying that obviously when these astronauts return to Earth after such a long stay in space, they're going to experience a lot of physical difficulties. Yeah, exactly, and physical ailments, really. So when do astronauts report feeling this? Is this the moment that they step onto Earth, or will it happen as soon as they kind of enter Earth's atmosphere?
Well, after the vehicle touching the atmosphere, they will feel the very serious G-forces, usually 3 to 4 times than their own mass. Because that we choose, as I have mentioned, the semi-ballistic or semi-lift trajectory. So the whole re-entry procedure is prolonged, and the maximum of the peak G-force is only less than 4 times of their own mass. But if we have an emergency re-entry, which the trajectory is more steeper, at this case, the maximum of the G-force can reach to 8 to 10. So the astronauts must be trained before their flight missions to adapt. They can adapt these so big G-forces. Usually, they will stay in the training facilities, and the peak of the G-force can reach to more than 8. Moreover, even at this moment, the astronauts, especially the commander and the pilot, should have the ability to operate necessary, for instance, to press some buttons to get some operations during this very difficult, very tough phases.
So there's a lot of reports of astronauts feeling dizzy, for example, right? This is when they get to space and also when they return to Earth. And this is something that they would feel once they touch down and once they can step onto the ground? Or
no, they have missed the gravity for 6 months. So as soon as the blackout starts, they will feel the gravity itself. Because the parachute is is being dragged by the atmosphere. So they're re-entering the Earth by a deceleration process.
And so this stage we're looking at right now, they're relatively comfortable.
They're still in microgravity.
Yeah, seated in the cabin there. Can we talk about their baggage there? I mean, we talked about how in preparation of this return, they tidied up the space station, they packed up, and they're bringing back a bunch of stuff. We're talking about experiment data. We're talking about samples, possibly. What are they taking back with them on this trip home?
Well, I think they're taking back a lot of scientific experiments, samples, as you mentioned. Also, but the biggest package you saw probably is not the experiment itself. It's some rescue raft or some other things. So it's not things that you see from the surface, because they're not taking a substantial amount of things back to Earth. They're taking also only the essential part, probably only the data. And also the return of the capsule is for the sake of the 3 astronauts. That's the main priority. So the astronauts' safety is the biggest concern. So they're returning with parachutes, backup parachutes, raft, and all safety precautions. So all of those are primary goals.
Understood.
And the others are maybe some scientific samples that they brought back from station.
As Yan has already mentioned, we not only should prepare for the normal return, but also should be prepared for the emergency cases. So we have some food, water, and even we have gun, have a pistol in the re-entry capsule. Because in some abnormal cases, we may be landed in the forest. Maybe we landed on the sea. So even there are beasts. So they must, the astronaut has capability to survive before the rescue team arrived. Yeah. So that is very important. You see that this time we have a faster return. And the fast return is not only more comfortable for the astronaut, because you know that the volume of our space station is about 50 cubic meters, so that's very comfortable. But the Shenzhou spaceship, even including the orbital module, the total volume of the Shenzhou spaceship is about 7 cubic meters, very narrow place and very not very comfortable. So we should shorten their stay in the capsule as short as possible. And also, we've already discussed about the samples. For some samples, for instance, such as the blood, and also other research results for the biological research and medical research, usually we need a very low temperature to store these samples. So a fast return can also bring more chances for the ground teams to get the samples as soon as possible and keep it in a very good storage condition.
Yeah, we understand the separation from the propulsion module has happened, or
will be happening any
will
minute.
will be happening anytime now.
Just now we see the videos from the inside the capsule. That means that we still have the communication link between the vehicle and the ground stations or the data relay satellite, so we can transfer the videos from the re-entry capsule. But after the separation, the main device for the data relay satellite will be jettisoned together with the propulsion module.
So what would you say is the most nerve-wracking time then for ground control and also for the crew coming back? Would it be this blackout
I
time?
see the parachutes, because
or we can see, we can still hear that Yaping is talking.
So we still have communication with them now?
Did you hear what she was saying?
No, I couldn't make it out what she said.
长程报告推返分离。
Great.
All right, the separation of the propulsion module has now happened, meaning that the return capsule is closer to the Earth's atmosphere.
So what we have already mentioned, the two very critical separation has been accomplished.
Yes, two.
Just confirm that.
Tasks down.
So that happened, I think, 145 kilometers above the Earth and above the areas of Africa. So that we're coming back from Africa all the way through India and Pakistan, and then all the way to Inner Mongolia.
Through Xinjiang.
Through Xinjiang. So that is the trajectory itself. So this is happening above African area. So that we're starting the descent by the capsule itself. So it's the point of no return at this moment.
So, Zhongshi, you think the parachutes is probably the most nerve-wracking time?
Yeah, I've heard from engineers at the Beijing ground control team who say that for them, that's the point where they can really breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that, okay, chances are that they're going to come home just fine, they're going to land safely.
I would agree with Zhongshi, but also there's a blackout that is also nerve-wracking. But after
that's
blackout...
That's what, 4 to 6 minutes?
Yes, yeah, roughly that time, yes.
Okay.
But the parachute deployment also has a great affection to the astronaut itself, because the astronaut will feel it. So they're traveling at 180 or 200 meters per second. And then at the moment of parachute deployment, that is descending the speed very rapidly. So they'll feel about 3 or 4 Gs of gravity.
Yes. Mr. Yang Liwei, the first astronaut of China, has mentioned that during the deployment of the main chute, he feels a very, very intensive impact of the deployment of the main parachute.
Yeah, we can only imagine that jolt you feel when the parachute is trying to slow you down from very high speed.
So the announcement of Kashgan, ground station have captured the capsule itself. So that means it's observable from Xinjiang with your autonomous region.
Oh, that's great to know.
Locking down the target.
Oh, great. The commander mentioned that the Kashi station. Kashi station is the most west ground station of China in Xinjiang autonomous region. So, which means that the whole spacecraft is already very close to our own territory.
It's right on target.
So we can see it from China now.
But at this moment, we know that because of the propulsion module is already separated, so we don't have the large antenna for the data relay satellite.
And what becomes of the propulsion module now? It's just space junk?
Disintegrate and burn up from the atmosphere. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it won't leave
Following
anything.
the capsule itself, as Professor Yang mentioned, you will see from infrared images capsule returning, also followed by a bunch of debris that is part of the. Yeah.
Okay. So we won't have to worry about debris of any kind, right? Hitting anybody.
We ensure the safety by the what we have already called the attitude control during the separation. One object, for instance.
下面通报返回舱第2次落点预报。
Okay, the second prediction.
东经1动动度动6分18秒。
Yeah, they're announcing the coordinates of the second projection of where the capsule will land.
41度36分25秒。
So this will be more precise compared with the first one.
Yeah, each one with more accuracy, so the retrieving team can make their way there.
Earlier, I think they said another site has spotted the re-entry capsule coming in.
Oh, is it Pakistan? I think that we have a ground station in Pakistan as well. So
yes, in Karachi.
In Karachi and also in Kashgar, so we saw both. Yes.
We also have ground stations in Namibia, in Malindi, and also with Karachi. So along the trajectory of return, we have multiple stations outside China and in China. So we have, as we have already mentioned, they can measure the trajectory of the vehicle.
I mean, it's not like they have a visual of the capsule with their naked eye, right? This has to be done with telescope and everything.
Yeah, with the radars and telescope, yes, and also infrared, yes.
Okay.
So although we cannot have communication with Shenzhou spaceship, but we do have the tracking during the blackout with multiple readers.
So the capsule itself is descending rapidly from 145 kilometers. I think at this moment roughly 110 or 100 kilometers above the Earth, and it's about to enter the blackout at any moment.
Yeah. So after separation, there also a very critical step is to adjust the attitude of the re-entry capsule, because before it touches the atmosphere, it must have what we call the attack angle, which means the cylindrical axis of the vehicle with this velocity. The angle should be about 1.5 degrees.
Yeah, the blackout will be a tough period, not just because of the lack of communication between ground and the taikonauts. It will also be a more uncomfortable period for the astronauts. They're going to begin to feel gravity. They're going to feel the frictions of all that burning.
I think this is the blackout period, yes.
Okay. We can see the trail is generated by the re-entry capsule, a very big spot. So this is an image maybe from the infrared camera.
Infrared, yes.
So this is quite a tense moment, or tense 4 to 6 minutes, really.
Yes. We just heard from the commander that the tracking of the Kashi ground station has already been finished, which means that I believe that at this moment the vehicle is already in Xinjiang autonomous region.
Left,
right.
Yes, left west of Xinjiang, so beyond their observation.
To the east of the Kashi station. So we can see the long trail of the re-entry capsule. The long trail is generated by the ablative material, which is vaporized by the high temperature caused by the friction with the atmosphere. And also, as Yanzong has mentioned, the high temperature of the ablated material will form an ionized field, plasma shield, which can block the radio waves.
Are all of these infrared images?
Yeah, those are infrared images from different stations. I think they're relaying this from Xinjiang all the way to Inner Mongolia.
Yeah.
So in
along
Gansu,
the whole trajectory, we have multiple stations.
They have stations in Gansu, so they're observing this from that.
We won't be able to hear the taikonauts in this period of time, but right after they come out of it, they should be able to report their status, whether they're doing fine. We hope to hear that catchphrase many times today
I feel
as
fine.
they go through this process. I feel fine.
Yes.
When the velocity of the vehicle has reduced to several hundred meters per second, the temperature will drop down and will no longer form any ionized plasma. So at this moment, the communication between the vehicle can be recovered. Also, as I have mentioned, we have inertial measurement units inside the vehicle, and we also have the navigation satellite devices. So with these measurements, we can also get the data of the position and the velocity of the re-entry capsule, together with data from the derived from the readers and optical telescopes. We can have the another prediction.
So there's a traction of different ground stations that they're announcing their end of the tracking because the capsule is descending, so the horizon is a bit lower. So they're beyond the horizon. So the astronauts on board, they're feeling vibrations at this moment, and also they can look out of the window and see red flames out of the window.
So once they're out of the blackout zone, that's about 40 kilometers from Earth, right?
Yeah.
And then from that point to when they land, we can expect that in just a matter of
minutes, yes. Because there is a deployment of parachute, and that will take some time for the capsule to descend from 10 kilometers to zero. These are announcements of different ground stations. Yes.
We just heard from the voice that Shuangcheng and Jinshan has captured the trajectory of the vehicle. Shuangcheng and Jinshan are very close to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, which means that the vehicle is already very close to the landing zone.
Jinshan I think is in Shanxi, Gansu province, yes.
青山回收1号双补完成。
Recovery 1 has already get the link. Recovery 1 is a very special reader which can monitor the trajectory even in the blackout area.
So it's been a couple of minutes now since they entered the blackout zone, right?
Yes.
We've got a few more minutes to go.
Finishing any moment, yes.
So it's already close to the point for the deployment of the parachutes.
I don't know about you, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm feeling pretty nervous here.
So even after the blackout, there's a free fall for about 30 kilometers before the deployment of parachutes. Parachute is about 10 kilometers above there, yes.
And then does anything need to happen to the parachutes once they touch down? Because if the parachute continues to be open, would that not cause a drag or anything that could
cause a drag? It can also,
we
tip over.
We must cut down the parachutes after we landed because the wind can drag the parachute and it may cause some dangerous.
So it detaches from the capsule.
Yeah.
Now, who does the detaching? How does the detaching happen?
It's automatic.
It's automatic.
Yeah. Okay. By pyrotechnics, some explosive.
What will be the indication of them coming out of the blackout zone? What will be the indication? Will there be visuals?
We will recover the communication link after coming out of the blackout area.
So, Professor Yang, you debunked this myth for me earlier on when we were chatting, but we always, at least I thought I had, I was hearing stories like this or hearing this and seeing this in the movies about astronauts fainting during some of this takeoff and landing process, but this doesn't happen.
Not very true. They are well trained for the conditions they will they will feel during mission. You know that not only the G-force they will experience, but also very intensive violation. Because of vibration, because that the aerodynamic forces not only produce the G forces, but also the vibration is very intensive. Right. So they will be trained on the ground to simulate these conditions, and they will in good condition during the re-entry.
Right. I mean, it makes sense that they stay conscious and stay in touch.
But for the people maybe who have not been trained for these kind of conditions, maybe they will faint. As
right.
Yes, even roller coaster can get you faint.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
But people, human body can kind of separate.
Looks like we've come out of the blackout zone here.
That during this re-entry, they only experience the 4G of G load, 4 times of the G load. But they have been trained for up to 8.
Okay, that's
so they're in good conditions.
Visual from.
Yeah, there's a
guide
great
deployment parachute. Yes,
the parachute.
The drogue chute has already been deployed.
So there's
a couple of them, right?
Yeah, to reduce the impact of the astronauts, they have to reduce the speed step by step. So there's a pre-deployment of parachute, and then there's a complete deployment of parachute. So they're taking their time so that the astronaut won't feel so much drag.
Whoa, it's so exciting. We've already heard the voice of Mr. Zhai Zhigang, the commander. So that means the communication link has already been recovered.
Right.
That's great news.
And the parachute is in bright color, normally red and white, making it easier.
If you can see the parachute there, this rescue team should be very close now. So we can observe this.
And it's a massive one, something like 1,200
square meters.
Square meters.
The parachute?
The parachute itself.
It's about three basketball
Yes, that's how big it is.
But that's the main parachute. So
Yeah, the main parachute. The total area of the main parachute is about 1,200 square meters. Very, very huge.
And how many other ones can we expect?
That's
more than one?
We can hear from the commander that he announced the third prediction of the landing point again.
Now, of course, with this visual already observable from the ground, it's safe to say that the third forecast will even be more accurate.
At this moment, the measurement of the wind speed will be very important for the prediction of the landing point.
So they must now be, 30 kilometers from Earth? Even closer?
Less than 10.
Less than 10 now? Wow.
So at about 6 kilometers high, they will jettison the heating shield, and then emitting all the propellants, because we use hydrogen as the propellant for the attitude control
so
of the
that could have happened
capsule.
any time now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it takes about 10 minutes for the vehicle to touch down after the deployment of the parachute. And after the deployment of the main parachute, the speed will be reduced to less than 10 meters per second.
That view we're seeing now, that's presumably a graph of where they'll be landing. Little image.
This process is just incredible to look at how multiple systems, multiple teams and departments work together to pinpoint where exactly the touchdown will happen, and they will make their way there almost immediately after.
This point is very close to the launch site, to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. You know that 3 years before, during my first visit to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, it is my first time during my life to see the Milky Way. So you can see how clear the sky near that point is. Very, very beautiful.
You can see the weather is in great condition. So there's no cloud, and everything is observable.
No sandstorms, very important.
No sandstorms, yes. No wind, that's also very important.
So this is the infrared image.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's like
the heating shield is jettisoned.
Okay.
According to the announcement of the commander.
That's the Beijing crew, I think.
Yeah, if you look at the parachute, it doesn't look like it's too windy. Otherwise, it would be,
dangling,
blowing back and forth, right?
Blowing back and forth, a little wobbling.
And after deployment of the parachute, we also have operation to change the direction of the ropes connected to the vehicle from inclined direction to the perpendicular direction.
How does that happen automatically?
To change some connections on the ropes. Okay, so we will emit all the propellants. And the next step will be the raising of the seats of the 3 astronauts.
Right. So just remind us again and the audience and our viewers why we need that seat.
That's because we touch down on the ground is a rigid surface, so we should reduce the impact to the greatest extent. Not only we use the retro rockets, but also we use the energy dumping mechanism of the seats. We raise the seats, and then during the touchdown, we can dump most of the energy.
Okay.
It's like a car suspension.
To give it more, cushioning.
And we won't know how the capsule will land, right? The last time in Shenzhou-13, it was sideways. It was sideways.
That's normal. That's very normal.
Is that ideal, though?
It's not ideal. Of course, the perpendicular attitude will be the most ideal. But what you mentioned is also very normal. This is because that's the centroid or the center of the mass of the capsule have some deviation from the symmetrical axis of the vehicle.
So if it lands sideways, and the astronauts are sitting obviously upright. Well, they're lying upright.
The
on
moment
the capsule.
landing is always vertical, and that's
and then
after
it
the
tips-
landing. It's tipped
and then
over
tips over.
or dragged over by their parachutes or some other.
But it's
factor.
entirely possible.
But it's always vertical.
But then it's entirely possible that once it's stationary, once it's landed, possibly tipped over stationary, that the astronauts are sitting in their seats but facing.
It could be, yeah.
They're suspended and they're facing down.
Could be hanging over, yes.
Bit of a test for them to
emission
extract
of the
themselves.
propellants.
The smoke you see there.
Because it's toxic.
Right.
So we, after deployment of the parachute, we do not need these propellants any longer. So we will emit these toxic propellants. And usually, in the rescue team, there will also be one person to measure if there do have any existence of this hydrazine. So if the measurement is 0, it will be safe for the rescue teams.
Yeah, that happens just minutes after the touchdown. There will be someone from the ground team to monitor substances in the
And
environment.
also, we have a very important procedure to use the lead cover to cover the gamma ray altimeter because it's radioactive.
So they're just kilometers away now from touchdown. So if you're just tuning in, we're watching the return of the Shenzhou-13 crew from China's space station. A 3-person crew, they've been up there for 6 months. Now they're coming home.
In many cases, the prediction is very so effective that even we can capture the video of the touchdown moment by the helicopter or by the ground vehicles.
And we won't be able to meet the crew immediately after they land. There's going to be so much formality and procedure before that. There are going to be people that check on them. We talked about personnel checking for toxic substances in the air, and then it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while before we actually see the 3 of them.
So we have a procedure called gravity readaptation. So it's different for different peoples. For some people, maybe it only need several minutes. Maybe for some people, only need more time for the readaptation of the.
Do they do that inside the capsule, or do they
inside the capsule? Inside the capsule. Before the ground team taking them out, they do have this gravity readaptation procedure. So when they feel comfortable, they can get out.
Okay.
But that procedure is done with assistance of medics from.
Right. Okay. And also the astronaut, the ground team belongs to the different systems, wearing different colors of suits. So for the astronaut system, usually they are wearing the white uniforms. For the
search and rescue,
yes,
it's orange, yes.
Mr. Xu, do you think there's much of a difference? Well, would there be a big difference? I'm sure there will be on for Wang Yaping and the other two, because male and female physiology is very different. So the 6 months impact, would it be very different for her?
It's a valuable scientific data that we're going to be collecting. So once they're returning, the rehabilitations and the recovery process is also very important for future missions because we have to make sure that these astronauts are returning at the appropriate process, and also make sure that the future missions will take precautions with whatever issues that they encounter.
Because there's so many differences. I mean, males and females, bone density, for example, it would be different too. So how
bones,
that would be affected,
muscle mass, and cardiovasculars, and many other psychological differences, and also.
But the female astronauts also have their advantages.
Right.
Usually, female astronauts is more powerful on understanding each other, and also are good at communication, and also more careful in operations. So it is very necessary to have female astronauts. I believe that during the operation of Chinese space station, we will have other female astronauts.
Yeah, to think that they wouldn't get along in that short space for 6 months, that would be.
Oh, that would be terrible.
But that with the help of the communication system, Yaping can have communication with her husband and with her kids very constantly. very frequently. They can call their family members directly.
That is crucial. That is crucial.
And also they can have very private communications. They have to have these kind of chances during their mission.
We also watched a few lectures live streamed from the space station.
Yep.
That was pretty interesting as well. So they had 2 live classrooms, I believe.
Completely different from environment on Earth. Yes.
I mean, should Wang Yaping decide she doesn't want to be an astronaut anymore, she'd be a great teacher. I mean, just look at the live space labs that she led and championed up there in space.
And she would need 2 astronauts as assistants.
I mean, their commander-in-chief pretty much was the cameraman that filmed them the entire time.
Every time during the educational lecture of Yaping, she always repeat her famous saying that the dream of flying never weightless, and also the dream of scientific research has infinite intention.
I mean, talk about instilling a passion in young Chinese and young people everywhere who aspire to be astronauts. That is a great way to do it.
Well, Mr. Xu, I think we watched the first lecture together, didn't we?
Exactly, with the ping pong ball floating in the middle.
And the blue liquid
yes.
in the bigger...
And the flower, yes.
And the water bubble, yeah. And I was saying then, Zhongshu, to Mr. Xu, that if I had watched that lecture from space when I was young, maybe I would have chosen a different career path.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You know that some of the students watching Yaping's first lecture in 1913 has already become part of our crew in the space programs.
Oh, that's just wonderful to hear. Yaping is the second Chinese female astronaut to have made it. Her maiden trip was back in 2013, where she also delivered a lecture from space.
Yeah,
but this is her first time. This is the first woman inside the space station.
Yes, and also during some interview of Yaping with the media, she also mentioned that her wish is to someday to walk on the moon as a Chinese astronaut.
Yeah, she did promise her daughter that she would bring her back a star, just one, not greedy.
She asked me to provide some names before the birth of her daughter.
Did she go with your choice of names?
Pity that's not mine.
Maybe next time.
Yes.
So we just heard earlier 2 more ground stations saying that they finished tracking.
Yeah, we're seeing that it's very close to the ground now. It's, even the image from the parachute, see that image from the helicopter, see the parachute is horizontal. It's like very close. Could be coming down at any moment.
This last 40 kilometers seems to be taking a lot longer. Well, it's a lot longer than I had expected, because the 80 to 100 kilometers was only in the blackout zone, only took, what,
well, that was
4
high velocity.
Yeah,
this is like 10 or 20 meters per second. Yeah.
I mean, this is by intention. You certainly don't want them to
go
too fast, right?
下面通报返回舱第4次落点预报。
Okay, the fourth and possibly the last forecast with coordinates.
Yeah, that's taking effect of the wind and everything, so it's coming down at any moment. You'll see the ritual, the ritual engine fired, yes.
Yes.
There it is, touchdown.
The smoke of the ritual engine.
The capsule has landed on Earth.
Great.
And we're from this visual from the chopper, right? That has been
it's already
monitoring. So it's so close. It's literally there.
Literally following it. Yes.
Yes.
So the next step will be the cutting off the parachute.
The chopper has arrived in position.
What is that we're
The
seeing?
ground team will be there momentarily.
You see the choppers are all, heading
It seems that it's vertical.
Was that the parachute or was that something else?
I can't really make it out.
Yeah, let's see. The choppers will be landing as well. Okay, so
it looks vertical.
Vertical, I think.
It looks
very precise.
That's good. I can't imagine what they're feeling right now, finally back home. In addition to gravity, they must feel so many things together.
It's like coming home, landing in the airport, but so much more, right?
Having their first
It's
meal.
like the old, it's like the old
back on
TV
Earth.
game. You know, we have the helicopters coming down, mission accomplished.
Yeah, it does look a little surreal. Yeah, the helicopters are reporting that they have arrived in position. You have people on the ground moving their way towards the capsule.
We haven't heard anything from the astronauts just yet, have we?
So the ground crew is checking everything, so they'll have to wait for the ground crew to come.
There's a huge crew there waiting for them, isn't there?
They will not. The astronauts will not be opening, the gate to the capsule, right? It will be the
hatch.
ground.
The hatch will be open. Yeah,
the
right,
ground staff will open the hatch.
Will open the hatch.
They have to check the hazard of the environment, the external.
Yeah, we've never had issues with the opening of the hatch, right? I mean, with all that's happened, if it's
damaged,
that'll be a problem to
right.
open, but we haven't had that issue. Yeah, you see people dressed in different colors, indicating that they're from different systems.
It does look like something out of a sci-fi movie right now, doesn't it?
Looks like they're not going to be using that pistol this time, though.
This time they will need a ladder to open the hatch.
Oh, with the elevated seats?
The ladder
to open the hatch.
To open the hatch, yes.
Okay. Yeah, the last time, because it was sideways, I didn't remember them using any ladder.
No,
to
just open, yes. So they announced the main parachute had been detached.
And they'll be checking the environment now to see if there's any of the toxins remaining, right? From
Yeah,
all
the helicopter are the first observer teams and also communication teams. They arrive and they will coordinate the arrival of the ground team. They are traveling with the convoy. And once they arrive, they will have all the facilities and equipments in the car. From there, they can start the process, of opening the hatch and greeting the astronauts and make sure that the astronauts are okay and ready to move out before they do anything to the astronauts.
So is it just the propellant that they were releasing earlier that could potentially cause danger? Is there anything else that could be residual on the capsule?
Professor Yang mentioned, there's also a
gamma ray
right.
altimeter that could be radioactive.
And that's why they have to go into quarantine as well for a bit, right?
No.
Not because of the gamma rays, but they have to.
The quarantine is caused because that they stayed in the isolated volume for so long period. So the microbe environment is quite different from our common daily life. So their immune system will be relatively weak. So we need this quarantine procedure to ensure their safety and healthy.
It's like last time NASA administrator visited China and he had diarrhea. And he said, it's because of different germs.
You can compare to the activation team to the South Pole. Usually, that's during their missions to the South Pole, seldom people will be ill and catch cold because they do not have so much microbes in the South Pole, in Antarctic regions. But when they get back, usually they will very easily to get ill because they will need to readapt the ordinary environment. So this quarantine is very, very necessary.
So no concern of anything in space that could have, that they would need to be in a quarantine. Yeah.
There's also
I think they're trying to open the hatch now. I thought that I saw a ladder and someone was on that ladder trying to open the hatch.
Well, they definitely need a ladder to go up.
Yeah. Have we heard from the taikonauts
They're talking to the astronauts, communicating with the window. I think through the window they're trying to see what's inside and the astronauts are okay.
Yeah. Can the astronauts hear them through that window?
Yeah, they can hear the helicopters and the big noises.
So the capsule's not too soundproof.
These are welcome noises that they want to hear.
Things they want to hear, yes.
Absolutely. The capsule itself doesn't look too charred, considering
there was
the return
a
process.
heat insulation bottom that was dropped, so the side of the capsule has been also burned relatively well, especially the side that's facing the Earth. The upper side is okay because it's less burned. So the chart you see from the charcoal on the lower part of the capsule. So they're coming back in an angle. Yes. So they have the ladder now. They are trying to open the hatch.
So the medical team will go
fast,
first
right?
into the vehicle
in white,
to help the astronauts.
The guys in white are medical teams.
Yes.
So I'm trying to imagine, Professor Yang, what you were saying about this next generation of
airbags.
Yes, airbags surrounding the capsule as it lands, and how they would have to navigate their way.
Actually speaking, not only will China use this on this new generation spaceship, the US, the Starliner, also use the similar technical methodology to use the airbag as for the energy impact dumping.
It's impressive every time they have the people with the red flag always go there and
first there with the flag.
Of course, it's a moment of national pride.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time for the medical team to check up on the astronauts, and they are readjusting, obviously, to gravity and to everything around them. We should be able to see them in a few moments, though.
Can we expect them to be walking out, or will they be lifted out? Right, their
legs. They'll be taken out by the ground staff.
Right.
There'll be 6 or 8 guys with the armchair, and then they will start carrying them to. And probably put them on right below the flag, and some interviews and some talks.
I mean, gravity aside, they haven't eaten in the past 9, 10 or more hours on this trip back home.
That's what they're experiencing. I mean, gravity for 6 months for the first time. Yes.
So it could be a while before they're able to get the strength in their legs back.
Yeah. The astronauts will feel their arms and legs are so heavy at this moment because they have been floating the atmosphere in the station for 6 months.
Right.
So they have to lift their arms at this moment, and they don't have to take any efforts to do that. And they're floating around. Now they have to make an effort, use their muscle to lift everything. So everything would feel very, very heavy. It's like you're swimming for 1 hour or 2, and then you feel, the gravity.
We can see that the re-entry capsule is in different colors in different parts.
Professor,
yes.
All right. We're going to talk to our reporter Sun Ye now. She's at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Sun Ye, so a successful return for our astronauts. What is everyone saying there?
Hey there, I'll just quickly update what we're having here. We're actually pretty much seeing the same live streaming, the broadcasting of their return. And the experts here at the Beijing Control Center have been saying the touchdown is perfect. Many of them have been putting a thumb up to us, saying the touchdown has been perfect. And they are saying the 3 taikonauts Shenzhou-13 crew, they are in the best position to come out of that re-entry capsule. They're sitting in the perfect position for them to make the best outing of that capsule. And again, in that last half an hour or so here at the Beijing Control Center, everyone is kind of still holding a little bit of breath, not because of the process, not because they think of it as dangerous, because all of them, including the taikonauts, have been practicing, running through drills, and they are familiar with the process. But just because the mission itself is so meaningful and such a success, and here now we've been hearing many good news already. Now, back to you.
Thank you so much for that update, Sun Ye. We'll speak to you again later. Meaningful indeed. I mean, this is a lot of firsts, records made on this trip. And this is, this is all kind of part of China building its space station, right? So this is the second manned mission for the space station target, and we'll have 2 more after this.
2 more this year. 2 more this year for the construction completion of the station from I shape to T shape. So another 2 wings to add to to the station,
Right,
two more fuselage, and then we are completing the station with two more missions.
And their stays will overlap briefly in the space station.
Week or two, yes.
So there will be 6 people altogether.
6 people in the station.
For 1 week.
Yeah.
For 1 week.
Yeah.
During the turnover of each different expedition teams, the Shenzhou-13 will reach the station before the leaving of the Shenzhou-14 crew. So they will stay there together for about 1 week.
Will any of their missions, the two to come, out be longer than this current one, or is this one going to be the longest one?
The ordinary turnover of each team will be 6 months, just like this one.
Okay.
But Mr. Zhou Jianping, the chief designer of China's manned space program, said also it is possible for us to have longer missions. I believe that will be mainly for scientific research, to measure, for instance, a longer residence duration, more than half a year, the influence of the outer space to the human body. So that will be a very meaningful study, especially as a preparation for the future missions, potential future missions to the Mars.
The longest duration I remember was 800 days plus.
800 days.
That's accumulated one. Yeah. So the one single residence is the record is 437 days in the Mir station. A Russian cosmonaut called Polyaev.
And it's good that the medical people were only there briefly, and which is a sign that the astronauts are doing fine.
As I have mentioned, they are just in the gravity readaptation procedure.
They have to reorient themselves. Their body and biological system are different.
Right. What would they be doing in this procedure, though? Just waiting
just
it out,
taking
or would they be
breath. Sometimes drink
exercising?
some water.
Okay.
And the puffness in their faces will go down now that they're back on Earth.
Not so quick.
Not too quick. And they will only have their first meal later today. It's not like they can feast right after they come out of the
Can't imagine
capsule.
they'd want to so soon either. If they're
Usually
adjusting.
they will have their first meal before they fly back to Beijing, just maybe this afternoon.
Okay.
Why do they make that flight today? Why don't they take the day off and just rest? Why do they fly right back to Beijing on the day they land?
Usually from the Dingxin Airport, very close to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
But why the hurry?
I think for medical
medical
purpose. Yes.
And they'll be doing their quarantine essentially in Beijing as well.
In the apartment of the astronauts in the
the
space city of Beijing.
Ah, okay.
On the way to the Great Wall.
Flurry of activity there. So we're checking in with the astronauts.
So these guys in blue color, which system are they from?
I think it's also the medical team, judging from their trousers, because the blue is just the overcoat, I think.
Okay.
And it's the condition in the Gobi Desert is still chilly.
Pretty cold there, right?
You can see from the flag that it's so windy.
So it could still be a long while before we get to see any of them
Yes.
come out of the capsule.
Usually, that's the commander sit in the middle. Usually, in ordinary cases, the commander come out of the vehicle first.
I mean, it looks like it's going to be difficult to lift them from that position from when the hatches.
Right, exactly. It's a very small opening.
It's a very
to
small
get them
opening,
out.
and how do you lift them up one by one from there?
I suppose we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll keep watching.
电实站架设开通完毕，复活完毕。
北京明白。
I mean, they'll be coming back with so much data and so much information to
The
process.
last few times has been horizontal, so they can some sort of carry them out. So this time they have to climb themselves out, I think.
Which could mean that they need more time to regain that strength to move out of the hatch there.
So I want to ask you a little bit more about the mission that these three have completed. I mean, what were some of the, would you say, were some of the biggest technical breakthroughs from this mission for the Shenzhou-13?
For the Shenzhou-13, I think the biggest one is the duration itself. 6 months has been unprecedented. That's a breakthrough for even also for the astronauts to stay in orbit. The longest one before was 33 days crew. So this is the biggest challenge, and also the breakthrough also goes on to the station itself. The spacesuit they wear is also a newly designed, and also the female astronauts doing EVA, and also is a breakthrough, because the spacesuit has to be tailor-made for the females, for the smaller figures.
Yeah, we're hearing from the ground team who report that the health checkup on the taikonauts turns out to be good, that they're in good health. They should be able to come out of the hatch any time now. This is their readaptation period as they once again feel the gravity here on Earth.
So the astronauts are ready to report at this moment.
We haven't heard from them once they landed, right?
Yeah, before blackout, yes. And also,
yes,
they're
communicating, I guess, with the medics now instead.
Just minutes before, we heard the voice of Mr. Zhai Zhigang after the main chute is deployed.
Yeah, but not since they landed. We have yet to hear them speak. Yes. But obviously the ground team that were there checking up on them have reported that they're doing fine, they're in good health. They just need this brief time to recuperate, and then it's likely that they will have to climb out of the hatch themselves because of the position that the capsule finds itself in.
And not to mention that their muscles and their whole body, their strength would be incredibly different now compared to how they were on the space station.
Yeah, you have the medics on standby just beside the capsule, ready to assist them should they have any difficulty coming out of the capsule.
Just before their return today, in recent days, they just has more intensive physical exercise every day to keep them strong. As we have already discussed, the re-entry procedure has very violent vibration and also G-forces, so they must strong enough to adapt this environment.
It's a tough process indeed. The chief commander there, Zhai Zhigang, speaking.
That's Yaping.
Astronaut 03, I'm feeling good too.
This crew has a nickname, Feeling Well crew.
All of them
positivity.
Beijing, this is from Shenzhou-13. We have safely landed with the return capsule standing on the ground. Astronauts 01, 02, and 03 all feeling very good. Copy that. Congratulations to all the crew members of Shenzhou-13. Salute. We are waiting for you in the capital city, Beijing. See you in Beijing.
The sweetest words ever. Can you imagine their family hearing these words, hearing them speak for the first time after they land? It's just incredible.
Reminds me of the song, I'm Feeling Good.
I feel good. That one?
I'm feeling good. That one.
All right, now that we've heard them speak, it means that they are ready to come out.
Zhai Zhigang, Wang Yaping, and Guangfu back home on Earth.
After a record-breaking 6 months in space, obviously they carried out 2 EVAs, and they conducted some 20 scientific experiments while they were in there.
And 2 live classrooms from the space station as well.
Absolutely.
Streamed to millions of students in China.
We just heard the ground staff reporting the final coordinates of the landing point.
We have completed with the measuring of the site of touchdown And now I'm sharing the coordinates of the touchdown with you.
So this data is also a very valuable reference for the future missions.
41 degrees north.
北京明白。
For this whole process of the landing, as you can see that now the return capsule is standing straight on the ground. This is already the 13th manned spaceship, and this was the second time for us to witness such a position of the landing, and the last time for us to have this position of the landing is with the Shenzhou-13. It's a very good condition and positioning angle for our taikonauts to get used to the gravitational environment again. And just now we have checked out that all the 3 taikonauts, they are in very good physical conditions. We have also dispatched our medics inside the cabin to check out the current status of our 3 astronauts. We would like to make sure that we can have some basic understanding about their status quo, and moving forward, we will also go through a pre-designated procedure of the medical treatment for our astronauts before getting them out of the cabin. So we have to wait a little bit more with a lot of patience. I'm now also waiting together with you. I'm on the spot. It will take about 30 to 40 minutes for us to finally see the exit of the 3 taikonauts out of the return cabin. I'm also very excited. I've taken the helicopter. I have followed the whole observation in the air. I'd like to share with you some personal observations and feelings. First of all, it has been a very precise landing, and especially for that moment of the landing by the return capsule. At the same moment, our helicopters made the landing too. It's almost simultaneous landing. And we have also realized the measurement in a very precise way. For the manned space program, it's a program with high requirement of the precision. We need a highly precise technologies to guide us through. And we also need a lot of advanced technologies to support the extension of the parachutes as well as the other stages along this process of the returning of the capsule. For example, the igniting, and also at this exact moment of the landing, the detachment between the parachute and also the return capsule in a manual manner, because you can see that it's quite windy here, so we have to do this manual separation between the return capsule from the parachute, and everyone's contributing their part of effort, and we are working in a perfect coordination. I've also heard from the site, and we have made this whole procedure very friendly to our astronauts. We have also streamlined the process because we understand that the 3 taikonauts, they have been working and living in the space for 6 months. They have been working in the zero gravity environment. We understand that there will be some damage to or impact to their bones and also to their muscles. So sincerely, we hope to create this wonderful and friendly environment for them to get out of the return cabin. As you can see now from the spot, we have more rescuers coming to the spot. Medics, they are also putting up the chairs for the taikonauts to use a little bit later when they once can get out of the return capsule. And from the image we have now, they are establishing some facilities to help our taikonauts out of the return capsule. And later on, we'll be waiting, all of us, to observe that wonderful moment for our taikonauts to climb out of the return capsule. The ground staff is all here, and our helicopters have also made the landing. It means that currently we have already established this whole network of coordination and telecommunication. And now the procedure is running in an orderly manner on the spot of the landing. The medics, they are working very hard inside the return capsule. They are communicating with our astronauts. So in the return capsule, I've also received some latest updates just a few moments ago.
You've been hearing the voice of our colleague at the Mandarin channel who is watching all of this unfold very closely. It looks like the taikonauts are getting ready to come out through the hatch there. I mean, I feel very conflicted here. I'm dying to see them, but I don't want them to rush because obviously they need this time to get ready. And as you see, every scenario of the hatch exit was anticipated. You see those ground personnel there erecting all these ladders for them to climb down. This was obviously prepared for this landing position.
And we heard earlier from the chief designer for the landing site that these crews have been conducting drills after drills to prepare for this, so they would be ready for all eventualities and scenarios. So this is obviously, as you said, within their anticipation, it's all running smoothly.
Yeah, this reminds me of also the company, American company Blue Origin. They also have a capsule that goes to outer space, about 100 kilometers, and then come back, and also in vertical position. But they have it like a side door that can open, and with the walkout of the astronaut, and also huge windows, and they can.
We have set up this operation platform. We have also dispatched experts and also medics to the landing site. They are preparing the whole site. And just now I've received some latest updates a few moments ago. We have all attached great importance and attention to the first meal that our 3 taikonauts are going to have when they land. They can have a huge diversity of choices for their first meal after the landing. They have the Chinese bombs, they have the porridge, as well as the noodles. They have the potato and the Chinese baby cabbage, and also the seaweed and some pickles, as well as the sausages. They can also have a strawberry, the tomatoes, cucumbers, as well as the yogurt. So from this recipe, and also the menu for their first meal after their landing, that's a very enriched meal, and according to the latest information, our medics and also the experts on the site, they are proceeding with the preliminary preparations before the exit of our 3 taikonauts from the return capsule. There are also 3 medical care vehicles waiting now on the spot. So this is one medical care vehicle for each of the 3 taikonauts. This time it will be quite different from the previous landing experiences, because this time we would like to shorten as much as possible the waiting time for our 3 astronauts. This time we have this specialized chairs to transfer our 3 taikonauts to the vehicles. Inside each of the medical vehicles, there is a usable surface of 12 square meters. This is a significant improvement compared to the previous landing of the Shenzhou-13 with a limited area between 7 to 8 square meters, and you count that the last time for the Shenzhou-13 we had 3 astronauts too. So if you do the calculation, that's quite limited space for each of the taikonauts. But this time we have greatly improved the conditions for the afterwards care and medical treatment to our 3 taikonauts. We have made the environment and all the conditions much more friendly to the taikonauts. They can have a very good environment to take a rest inside. They can enjoy each of them one whole vehicle for their care, and they can also be expecting very delicious meals during their first meal after the landing. We have prepared a very enriched and abundant meal for them. So judging by the existing procedure, you can see that we have made a lot of improvements.
Again, our colleague in the Mandarin channel reporting on the site there. My takeaway from that is that they get to eat pretty much everything. There's basically nothing they can't eat should they have the appetite for it.
It's not a too shabby menu, is it? Plus something from your province too.
Absolutely, from
Sichuan sausages.
Yes, Mr. Ye Guangfu is a native of Sichuan province, so maybe he likes spicy food.
Yes, and they had quite a variety of food to choose from when they were working there in the space station, right? More than 100 different kinds of food to sustain them for the past 6 months.
So it sounds like as long as it's nutritious, diet's not too big a factor in their recuperation after landing, right?
Yeah, the space food is always tastes different from food on Earth. Also, you have the experience of flying. You have the lunch and dinner on the plane, and the food is completely different from what you have on Earth. So they're different tastes. And also before the meal, they will have a bumpy ride back to the base, and the vehicles are ready. And they have had a very smooth ride for 6 months, and this is the first time they're taking the vehicle.
But a more comfortable one than the ones that the last crew rode on back to Beijing. This one is 12 square meters, I think they said, so very spacious, and I guess enough for the crew, the medical crew, to be around as well, to look after them and be on hand when they need.
In outer space, because of the microgravity environment, the blood will be redistributed in our body, so the tongue will be less sensitive than on the Earth. So as Yan Song has mentioned, maybe the space food will be more salty, more spicy, of that.
It's so nice to see that the whole ground team tend to their needs at this moment. They deserve every bit of it after what they endured, what they were able to accomplish on this very long business trip, shall we say?
They say national heroes.
Absolutely.
And the ground team has been in drill for several times to practice all kinds of conditions, not only this normal condition, but in some other different conditions. They must face the different case for the rescue the astronauts.
Speaking of the ground crew, let's get another update from our reporter Sun Ye, who's at the Beijing Aerospace Command Center. Sun Ye, so bring us up to date on the latest.
Hi there. Again, here from the Beijing Control Center. You heard it. We heard it. Announcement of complete success. The complete success of touchdown. And fresh off that, the announcement, we have Li Liang, who is one of the designers here at the Beijing Control Center. I'm going to ask him what it feels like after this whole night. 谢谢你，就是李亮老师今天能够刚刚宣布
So Mr. Li, just now we have declared the successful landing of the return capsule, and we heard rounds of applauses on the site of the commanding center. You've been staying here on the site. How do you feel now? From yesterday morning until now, we've been working here, trying to safeguard this mission, and this time the astronauts have made the successful return to Earth. We feel that our efforts are paying off. And just now, I've noticed that a lot of people have shown their thumbs up. So does the real scenario corresponds with the scenarios in the drills? Yes, we practiced everything. The whole process has been running very smoothly. We have realized a very precise control, and also the landing in general is a very perfect one. We've also heard for multiple times that it has been a very perfect mission. So this is a mission that has lasted for more than 6 months. It's the first time for us to have this very long experience. And what's so special for you about this mission? For the first time, we have used a mirroring separation for our spaceship, and correspondingly we have carried out a lot of design details and also the drills. We have also activated rapid return plans with only 5 orbits. We have first of all carried out the process of verification. We have also used a real spaceship to do the drills. We have also elaborated a lot of plans for the emergency response to make sure that the return plan can be realized in a very rapid way. So you have already communicated with the crew members of the Shenzhou-13 about the rapid return plan? Yes. Previously, in our communication with the taikonauts, I have already told them that we may use this rapid return plan that can help us to save a dozen of hours, and they were very happy upon hearing this news about the rapid return plan. And we are also very proud because we made it. Thank you very much. And because Mr. Li has
the mission is
to
not
leave.
complete for people here at the Beijing Control Center. Mr. Li Liang, who's part of the team, the ground team here at the Beijing Control Center, he was one of those who gave a huge applause when that successful touchdown happened. And we will be updating about this whole process throughout the rest of the day. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Sun Ye, and a huge congratulations to everybody there.
I mean, it's a relieving day for people that have worked on this mission, but their colleagues, their other teams are busy preparing for next missions to come. We're talking about a very busy schedule for China's space program this year. 2 more modules, experimental modules to be sent up, 2 more crews to be sent up into space. And by the end of the year, we're expecting the completion of China's own space station, a T-shaped structure, a T-shaped space station up there in space, designed for a lifespan of between 10 to 15 years altogether.
So 11 missions altogether for 2021 and 2022. And we'll have, this one is just one of those. So the manned missions that you're talking about, and of course there's going to be some cargo missions there as well, right? Some cargo flights.
Next month we will have the Tianzhou-4 cargo mission. From the Wenchang satellite spacecraft launch site. But before that, they do have other critical steps. For instance, after the leaving of the Shenzhou-13 crew, the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship, currently docked to the rear docking port, will undock and turn to the front and then redock with the front docking port. This is to free the rear docking port for the Tianzhou-4 cargo ship. So before the arrival of the Shenzhou...
How does the redocking take place, Professor Yang?
It will be achieved automatically. By the cargo ship itself.
Okay.
This is very important for the arrival of the Tianzhou-4 mission, because before the arrival of the Shenzhou-14 crew, they will also have 2 cargo ships docked to the station, Tianzhou-3 and Tianzhou-4.
So what do you think are some of the big milestone missions that we can expect for the rest of this year?
Well, the next one we're expecting is the Shenzhou-14. That's the milestone.
The manned, right?
Yeah, the manned mission, and also the launching of the two more the Tianhe, Wentian and Mengtian. So those two, the two more fuselage that is part of the station. So those are the historic moments that we're expecting, and also the overlapping of the 2 crews on board the Shenzhou, the Tiangong mission. That is also something to look forward. 6 guys at the same time on board the Tiangong.
That's the maximum capacity, right? You can only have 6 people at most at one time.
Well, you can have more on board, but that's not necessary at this moment. We can always accommodate more astronauts on board.
Okay.
Well, in the Wentian module, we will have another 3 beds for the bedrooms for the astronauts. So for the 6 crew, during the turnover of each expedition team, each astronaut will have his or her private space.
And then once the space station is complete, do you expect that China will have astronauts up there constantly? Will it be just
continuously?
Continuously.
Yeah. Continuously. Because this will be more efficient. You know that in these missions, before the leaving of the Shenzhou-13 crew, they must switch the configuration of the status of the station from manned status to an unmanned status. For instance, the life support and the environmental control system will be in a different condition. They will not produce oxygen from the water any longer, and also some other instruments must be switched to a different configuration. So in the future, after construction, as you have mentioned, we will not need this kind of switch. Right. So it will save a lot of time and also will be more efficient. Moreover, it is very important to let the different expedition team to be face to face and to introduce the work of the scientific research. There will be multiple scientific research racks on the Wentian and Mengtian module, and doing scientific research continuously. So before the leaving of one expedition team, in many cases, the research will not be completed. So it is very important to introduce the current status, current condition to the next team in orbit.
Right. Well, whilst we're on the subject, Mr. Xu, so just give us an overview of the space station, and it will eventually look like a T, right?
Well, yes, we have 3 stations so far in history. The first one is, of course, the Russian Mir station. It's similar to the one we're constructing. And the second one is the International Space Station, which is huge in scale and is also participated by more than 20 countries. And also the newly deployed the Chinese station, which is a T-shape, total of 62 metric tons, or some say 90 metric tons in overall configurations. And also bear in mind that we're launching the station and the astronauts from 2 different launching sites. The Hainan satellite launching site in Wenchang was recently visited by President Xi. That is responsible for launching the fuselage, the station itself, and the cargo ships, the Tiangong, Wentian, and Mengtian, and also the cargo ship. All of those are launched from the Wenchang Satellite Launching Center. The astronauts going and coming back to Earth is using the Jiuquan Satellite Launching Center. So they return. The astronaut itself is run and operated in Inner Mongolia, where the stations, all the cargoes and the fuselage are being launched from Wenchang.
Are they moving chairs next to the capsule?
Yes. Yeah, I think the astronauts, once they're out, they're going to be chaired.
In anticipation of the exit of the astronauts any moment now. They will come out in their suits, right? In their suits, the shield will be off. Chances are we will be hearing them speak.
They will still wear the IVA spacesuits.
Okay.
But without
helmets already
will be off.
Why won't they remove the suits for them? Because wouldn't it be easier for them to walk without the suit?
Well, you know,
not walking, but
the re-entry capsule is a very narrow volume, less than about 3 cubic meters. So it's
a very practical concern. Okay.
Change their suit inside the cabin. But the IVA spacesuits is very, very critical for ensure the safety of the astronaut. You know that during history, they do have tragedies in history. During the flight of the Soyuz 11 mission, because of malfunction of a valve, so during the re-entry, the leak of the valve caused a vacuum condition inside the cabin, and the 3 astronauts, cosmonauts, only wear ordinary suits, so they lost their life in a very painful condition.
So the suit can provide some pressurized oxygens and also some degrees of thermal protections, and also
pressurized.
Yeah, pressurized suits. So it's if you lose pressure, on board the cabin, it's still survival.
And it is chilly over there, isn't it? And windy, it looks like. So I guess this also helps them when they're getting off.
Soyuz 11, after Soyuz 11 disaster, there is no exception that all the crew transportation vehicles.
They've unfastened from the seats.
Mr. Zhai Zhigang has left his seat. So they have safety belts in different for fixing their legs and their bodies to be a countermeasure to the violet and the intense vibration.
Okay, any moment now we should
ready for the EVA on Earth.
the EVA on Earth, which will be much easier.
With many helping hands.
With many helping hands. You see 3 people, I think, on top of the hatch, ready to assist the taikonaut there.
And a few more for the descending. So they're ready to carry the astronauts onto the chair.
How long will it usually take before they can get their strength back and start walking again by themselves?
Could be weeks. Could be weeks. Yes.
And during this time, would they still be undergoing some rehabilitation exercises
exactly,
as well?
Because of the 6 months exposed in outer space, they have lost so much bone mass. They can have easily have a fraction of the bone. So their bone, their muscle needs to be rebuilt, and the inner ear has to find the balance on Earth. Right. So everything has to come together. So that will take some time. Even they have a hearty meal waiting for them still. It would take some time to recover.
They might find lifting chopsticks even pretty difficult, right?
You know that in a common situation, 6 months resident in space, they will lose about 12% of their bones. Oh, wow. So that will be a very severe condition for them.
It's a good thing that's reversible, right? When they
and also not only the exercise, daily exercise is very, very important. Also their nutrition is very, very important.
The human body is such a thing that if you
it
don't
is very
use
interesting that I have a friend from Japan, a Japanese astronaut, Koichi Wakata. He said that when he can get back, the calcium in his bones even increased.
Oh,
so that's very amazing. That because of that is the importance of the nutrition.
Yeah, that's a good perk.
The exercises they were doing in the space station, I think, was there a bike that they were?
Yes,
an exercise bike, right?
And also the treadmill.
I think Guangfu was on that a lot. I see pictures of Guangfu on that bike a lot.
Lots of elastic bands.
Right.
You know that some astronauts on the International Space Station even break a record to have a complete marathon we use with a treadmill. In
2 hours a day. That's pretty intense workout for most people.
And also Yaping has the ability to accomplish a full marathon.
She has the ability. Has she successfully done that?
Yes.
Here on Earth?
Yes.
A marathon?
Okay.
Yeah.
A marathon? Yeah, apparently.
A full one? We'll have to find out.
I mean, she was said to be really good at PE back in school when she was growing up. That's why she stood up among her peers as a very capable candidate when she applied for.
She was a jet pilot before.
She was a jet pilot when she applied for that position.
She
at
is
the academy.
A freighter pilot.
But if you are astronauts in China, that means you eat well, you sleep well, and exercise. That's a majority part of their job. Right? Yes.
It is also very interesting that Yaping has the wish to become an astronaut when she watched the live coverage of CCTV of Yang Liwei's first trip. So you can see the outreach and also the broadcasting is very important for us.
Exactly. You don't know who are watching today and who will have who will be inspired from these people. I mean, I have so much respect for them because of their strenuous training and preparations for these missions, and also because of the risks they were willing to take to make this a success.
And I think the psychological side of things as well.
Absolutely.
6 months in space. I mean, that is, as much as that's an exciting thing that not many humans will get to accomplish, I think it's still a huge amount of endurance, right?
And every time they appear in video, they seem to be in such good spirits. I mean, you're talking about live space lectures, or talking about their greetings to their fellow Chinese at the Chinese Lunar New Year Gala.
International Women's Day. Don't
International Women's Day.
And they eat dumpling during the
oh, they had dumplings up there with them.
They're helping him.
Now, yeah,
they're helping him.
Oh,
so he's coming out.
Must be Mr. Zhai.
That's the commander.
Chief Commander Zhai Zhigang, who sat in the middle of the three seats there. He has now come out of the hatch.
A true veteran. I mean, he is the first Chinese astronaut to conduct a spacewalk.
Yes.
Joined in 1996, China's manned space agency. Joined then.
I mean, he always looks so calm, cool, and collected throughout the journey there. Always smiling.
That's what makes a commander, isn't it?
Very trustworthy, exactly. Slowly moving his way down the platform.
So accumulated, he's the longest space stayed man in China. So more than 100 days. Yes.
Yeah. But still
more than
12 days less than Yaping.
Because he went up with the Shenzhou-13 mission. In 2008.
Because Shenzhou-13 mission only stayed in outer space for 3 days, while Yaping in the Shenzhou-10 mission for 15 days.
Okay, they're carefully carrying him to the chair where they previously placed right next to the capsule.
So, Professor, I think you were saying before that it's now protocol now for all astronauts to wear the full spacesuit on the way back, right?
They will change their suit maybe on the helicopter. Or maybe in the quarantine chamber.
But this suit itself, how much would that weigh? Not too heavy.
Kilos, not so heavy.
Okay.
It's a few kilos. They're able to walk in it. Yes.
Not like the 100-kilo spacesuits
no.
that they wear when they do
That's
it.
an EVA with the life support system. Yes.
Actually speaking, they have air supply and electrical supply from the cabin. So the IVA spacesuit is much more simple than the EVA spacesuits. And also, the most important thing, effect will be it provides a pressurization.
He's smiling.
He's smiling. There was a big thumbs up from him.
Feel the
is
gravity.
Really nice to see.
Yeah.
Waving his hands and smiling at the same time. That's good to see. I mean, he's always smiling. I mean, every time you see him, that guy is smiling.
His arm is so heavy.
Very reassuring.
That wave.
Every time he dropped it,
it
dropped his arm. Yes. A habit in outer
space. It's like waving
yes.
with a 20-kilo weight or something in your hand.
It's a little bit windy, so
they're wrapping them up very tightly.
He's saying something which we can't hear what he's saying, but he seems to be in very good spirits, waving to a cheering crowd there.
Good
morning, Zhai Zhigang. I'm a journalist from CMG. Welcome back. How do you feel now? I feel extremely good. I'd like to report to my motherland and the people. We have successfully completed the mission of the Shenzhou-13. We are now back on Earth. Astronaut 01, I myself, I'm feeling very good. I'm really thankful for President Xi for his attention attached to our mission. I also would like to say thank you to Chinese people for your care and your support. Also, I would like to say thank you to all the colleagues staying with us. Our country has grown so much stronger to be able to set up this wonderful working platform for our side. I'm so proud of our motherland, our country. Thank you.
He talked about a very high working platform. Indeed, 400 kilometers from Earth. That's the highest, pretty much the highest working platform anyone can wish for.
So it's a long commute.
It's a very long commute and a very vibrated one.
Yeah, that's what we call high technology.
So So they're coming out one by one.
Yeah.
We should be able to hear all of them speak a little bit.
Because the commander always sit in the middle, so always he comes
First one
out
out.
first.
And he has been lifted off to the medical care vehicle, I assume.
I think they. Yeah.
To the tents first.
A huge weight has been lifted off his shoulder. Can you imagine? I mean, he should need all the time in the world to rest and to recuperate.
We have 2 more astronauts waiting to come out.
Yeah, imagine 6 months without gravity, and then all of a sudden you feel all the gravity on your body, and even you feel your stomach, your heart is heavy.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to imagine. Really.
It's hard to imagine. Really. Yeah. I try to put myself.
Well,
in that position,
you can imagine that you submerge in water for a period of time, and you feel floating, and all of a sudden you came out of the water and you feel your body is very heavy, and that's what they done for 6 months. So it's very heavy for them, and
a
the
lot
gravity.
of respect to them.
Yeah.
And for people that are interested in China's space program, they probably have seen this last year with Shenzhou-13, but we're talking about a crew that stayed in space for 6 months. It's not just simple maths, twice the time they did, but then the impact on your body, the will, the stamina, the strength it takes to sustain a trip that long, it's just incredible. And these people are now back here on Earth with a new national record.
Presumably their recovery will take longer as well, right?
Compared with the previous cruise, yes. The human body will recover after 2 or 3 months. So you regain your strength, and you get more bone mass, and you get used to gravity. Of course, first thing is to avoid friction of the bone. So that's why they're carrying them all the way instead of letting him walk it down. So they're getting the second astronauts out of it, and I think the astronaut also get what we call a culture shock, because you've been seeing the 3 faces for 6 months, and now you see so many different faces.
It's a nice culture shock to have, I'm sure. It's something that they will like to have.
But Yaping do have cosmetics during her mission because she can be seen not only by her crew members but also by the ground staff every day.
She put her makeup.
And by all of the people back here on Earth watching them power through this very long mission.
I can still remember that one day that the ground staff said, "Okay, I can see your 瓜子脸 again."
That's referring to her very chiseled cheeks.
I mean, the cameras certainly have liked her. I mean, every time she appears, she always looks warm, pretty professional, very engaging in her lectures.
Yeah, I definitely liked watching that classroom live streamed from space. Very dynamic in that.
I hope they get a long vacation after this, not having to worry about anything in the line of their work, and
they have a lot of experience to pass on to the next crew who are going up as well.
They need to do a lot of debriefings, works to be done.
Not
physically, maybe mentally. Yes.
Yeah.
Just before they leave, the Shenzhou-13 crew moved most of the important cargoes from the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship to the Tianhe module. Tianhe-1 core module, because that as mentioned, the Tianzhou-3 must perform another undocking and redocking again. So the moving the cargoes to the Tianhe core module will avoid the cases that if the redocking is failed, so we can still keep the resupplies to the next team.
What about the waste that these astronauts would have produced?
Well, you may notice that several days before, the Tianzhou-2 cargo ship has just de-opted to the South Pacific. Most of the waste from the Shenzhou-12 crew and part from the Shenzhou-13 crew are installed in the Tianzhou-2 cargo ship and de-opted to the South Pacific. what we call the Nemo Point. The Nemo Point is a point in the South Pacific, which is thousands of kilometers from any land of the Earth, and also they seldom have any ships or aircraft there, so it's safe enough for the deorbiting of the spacecraft. Usually, most of the cargo ships from other countries and also the stations are deorbited to this point.
So they would have
call it
left
space trash field.
So they would have left the space station basically completely ready for the next crew to move in, waste included, nothing left in there for them to have to deal with.
But actually speaking, the waste of the astronauts also very valuable for scientific research, especially their experiment. Because you know that the influence of the outer space to this kind of waste is also very helpful for us to understand the, for instance, the breeding of the microbes and also other scientific purposes.
So will this have to be brought back?
Not all of this, because the downloading capability of the Shenzhou spaceship is limited, usually about 50 kilograms.
So remember, the weight of the capsule also affects the trajectory of the return. So you know that everything is being calculated
to a T.
This
right?
one.
Wang
That's
Yaping
Yaping.
coming out.
She's her usual cheerful self, waving to the crowd waiting there. Professor Yang, how do you feel about seeing your friend back here on Earth for the first time in 6 months?
Yaping is still so energetic, like usual.
sliding down.
You can hear a lot of cheering for her.
Yeah, people shouting her name.
You can see the slider itself, and the astronaut slides down with the belt behind, so they're dragging it. So there's gently slide down and carried by 6 people onto the chair.
Oh, look at that huge bright smile.
She's just happy to be back. There's no mistaking that.
I believe the most happy person on the Earth will be her daughter, Zhao Yunxi.
I imagine so. And she has made so many firsts on this flight.
Yeah.
I mean, she had big dreams when she was little, growing up, to first become a pilot, and then a career as an astronaut in China's space program.
And for the first time in 6 months, someone to wave to.
So 15 days she spent on the Shenzhou-13, and then now added to this 183 days. So she's the Chinese astronaut who's been in space for the longest.
Yeah, yeah. So she now keeps the longest accumulated duration in China among all astronauts of China.
Record setter.
Good morning, Wang Yaping. I'm the journalist from CMG. Welcome back. After this special trip of 6 months, have you completed all the mission given by your daughter? And do you have any message to share with us all? It's been a trip to the space for more than 180 days, but we are not alone because we have been cheered up by the messages of congratulations from President Xi Jinping, and we are accompanied by all the colleagues from our side. We are also welcomed by all the people and supported by them in this country. And now I have a message for my daughter. I'm back with all the stars collected for you.
Oh, well, that's a heartwarming but also quite touching message there.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we've got to remember that as a mother, being separated from her child for this long, I mean, that's a huge mental thing to have to deal with, isn't it?
But she can have video dialogue with her daughter very frequently.
As frequently as she wanted?
Yes.
Okay. That's good, that's good. I mean, she obviously had the full support of her family, her daughter, her husband.
Miss Huang Weifen, the chief designer of the astronaut system, also mentioned that during the Shenzhou-13 mission, Mr. Nie Haisheng called her one day during the flight. So
out of the blue, on scheduled call.
Not
so he's
not
the
on
commander of the last,
schedule. So it's very a very helpful, a very happy surprise.
And I suppose the next crew would want to meet them when the time is convenient, just to get a sense of what's in store for them. I mean, obviously, they all train in as similar circumstances as possible, but it's a different story when you actually go up there.
Of course, they'll have a lot of practical tips to share.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there are things that you can't train for, I imagine, as well. You know,
so as the introduction of the ground staff to the reporters, so the 3 astronauts will be in different ground vehicles.
What's the size of their living space in the Tiangong?
50 cubic meters.
50 cubic meters.
So in the future, after the construction, it will be extended to 110 cubic meters.
That includes your sleeping quarters, your work zones,
yes.
experimental.
Yes, exactly.
But
well. Honestly speaking, the volume of the Tianzhou cargo ship is not included. And also, it will also increase the total volume of their living quarter. As I mentioned, the Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata mentioned that she slept many times in the experimental modules or in the cargo ships. So because it's very quiet there, so it is also extended their total volume.
50 cubic meters. That's quite a hard concept for a lot of people to try and visualize.
One hotel room, but it's a 3D.
I mean, one of the experimental modules that are scheduled to be sent up this year could also double as the core module should emergencies happen, right? That's one of their functions when we send Mengtian and Wentian up there.
Exactly. You know that the Tianhe core module plays a role as the center of the station. For instance, the environmental control, the living quarter, and also the communications, and also the data handling. But the Wentian has a very special role as a backup of the core module. So it also has a independent life support system to support, as we have already discussed, the life support for 6 crew members, and also another 3 bedroom as a private volume for each astronaut.
The EVAs that they did when they were on the space station, I think one of them was using a robotic arm to control.
Yes, the robotic arm is to help the astronaut to move from one place to another more fast and more convenient. And moreover, with the help of the robotic arm, the astronaut can take very heavy instruments together with them. You know that usually when they're moving on the surface of the station by themselves, during the last EVA of the Shenzhou-13 crew, they also tested to trying to take some objects together with them. But that will be very difficult. But with the help of the robotic arm, that will be more easier.
So this will all help with the advancing and building the space station, right?
Yeah, and also we should emphasize that the EVAs performed by the Shenzhou-12 crew and the Shenzhou.
The last of the crew,
Mr. Ye Guangfu.
Ye Guangfu is now exiting the capsule. They're pulling him out.
He's the youngest crew member.
And it's the first time for him to be in space.
Yes.
Ready to slide down.
He's the youngest. He's only 1 year younger than Wang Yaping.
Mr. Ye Guangfu is very special. You know that we have a tradition that we don't release the names of our astronauts before their flight missions. But Ye Guangfu is an exception. This is because he attended joint training with ESA before. So his name was known by us several years before his flight missions. So this is a very special case. And because he was trained in Europe and he can speak English well, so I believe that he will be a very good choice for the future joint missions with other countries.
And for the 2 more missions this year, will it always be a combination of veterans and new astronauts?
Yes, this time 2 veterans, Mr. Zhai Zhigang and Yaping, are all veterans who have flight missions before. Mr. Ye Guangfu is a newcomer.
I mean, that's definitely a good way to train future astronauts.
This is because that's also a similar configuration of the Shenzhou-12 mission, because these 2 missions are too important for Earth.
And veterans are needed to the construction of the station, because they're not there to just to enjoy the microgravity environment. They have to build their house.
Right. The spacesuits that they're wearing currently, are those boots weighted in any way? The boots that they're wearing on their spacesuits, would they have weights?
No, these are not for walking.
Okay.
Yes, these are just for
microgravity
environment. Yes.
Good morning, Ye Guangfu. I'm with CMG. So it's your first spatial trip, and it's been more than 6 months. How do you feel now when you're back on Earth? For my first spatial trip, and it's a long one, which has lasted for half a year, that is a challenge for my side. At this moment, I've also made my dream come true, to fly to the space. I can report back to my motherland. Now I'm feeling very good. Please don't worry for me, and in the future, we will always follow the instructions and calls of our country, the CBC Central Committee, and our people. We will never let you down. Thank you. See you in Beijing.
Now we already have 5 astronauts from the second batch of Chinese astronaut teams. Mr. Chen Dong, Mr. Ye Guangfu, Mr. Tang Hongbo, and also together with Ms. Liu Yang and Ms. Wang Yaping, 5 astronauts of the second group. Mainly are born in 1980 also. So I believe that these astronauts will play a very major role in the future operation of China's space station, because they already have the flight experience, and also they are still very young.
Do they mean that they could possibly be going again after the space station is completed by the end of this year?
I don't believe that the Shenzhou-12 and the Shenzhou-13 crew will attend the Shenzhou-14 or 15 missions this year, because the Shenzhou-14 and the 15 mission, the crew has already been selected.
What about future endeavors?
Usually, we will have an interview more than 1 or 2 years for one astronaut in different missions, because they need the readaptation and also other trainings for different missions. And also, I believe that during the Shenzhou-14 missions and Shenzhou-15 mission, we will also have veterans and new recruitment.
What will happen now to the return capsule?
Well, as we have already discussed, the ground staff, especially those from the engineering department, will seal the hatch, and also it will be reopened in Beijing in the Space City.
It will be shipped back to Beijing for engineering purpose.
Okay. A lot of
this pretty much concludes a very nerve-wracking morning for all of us. Now all of China's 3 astronauts from the Shenzhou-13 mission have now exited the re-entry capsule and are now being transported on that medical vehicle for quarantine in Beijing.
But I'm very eager to know what Yaping will post on WeChat for the first time after
Please do share with us when she does post. I mean, each one of them.
Astronaut 03 has already been transferred to the medical care vehicle.
I can still remember that her last post on WeChat is just several hours before the liftoff of the Shenzhou-13, and there is the picture of the launch site, and also is a very small doll of the astronauts.
Transferred to their own designated medical care vehicles now.
各号注意，我是北京，后续东风按计划组织航天员一肩医保。
Now, according to our agenda, we will kick off the transfer of our 3 taikonauts. Wish you a very pleasant and smooth journey.
Yeah, no journey will be more bumpy than the one they just had back home. So hopefully everything will be smooth from here and they will recover and recuperate as fast as possible. It was indeed an incredible job they did up there in space for 6 months.
That is a long time, and the longest yet for Chinese astronauts.
So they said something about dealing with the re-entry capsule now on site.
Yes, on site they will do some handling of the capsule, like the close of the hatch, preparation for the shipment, and passivation of all equipments and facilities, so that it's ready for shipment and land transport back to Beijing. So that, but the capsule itself, as well as the astronaut, probably will go to the base first and make some preparations before they are airlifted to back to Beijing, and the astronauts will enter the rehabilitation phase.
Could the capsule end up in a museum someday?
Yes, we've already have a few capsules that has in exhibitions in Beijing and throughout Beijing. So the capsule starting from Shenzhou-1 to Shenzhou-4 has been experimental capsules that is in display in different locations. And from Shenzhou-5 has always been manned missions and all successful. The capsules are back in the museums and facilities. Once they're studied carefully, they're released to the public for public education and awareness purpose.
What do you think they'll be looking for, studying the
Well,
capsules?
there are many factors, the instruments and the onboard parameters, the exposed skin of the capsule, so that they have to study the burning process and to perfect that capsule and materials, as well as the hatch. We had a significant failure of the parachute during the experimental process. One of the parachute was not deployed, so there was a parachute cabin as well as the backup parachutes, and many factors and technical parameters to look to.
Yeah, it's just such a happy ending for all of us today. I mean, we've had these two missions, Shenzhou-12 and Shenzhou-13, pretty much back on back. You know, the Shenzhou-12 came back in September, and this one was launched in October. And this year we expect 2 more manned missions to happen this year. We're going to have a lot more, but every time it doesn't get any easier. It doesn't get less nerve-wracking. I mean, Mr. Xu was telling me not to be nervous before our broadcast. The confidence you had was in the Chinese team's capabilities, the upgrade of technologies. When you look back on this morning, what do you think?
Well, I think it's been a nerve-wracking process. People get nervous when people's life gets involved. We're talking about life and death here. So the returning of astronauts and launching of astronauts has always been dangerous. 6 months in orbit is challenging, but it's not so fatal as we talk. But landing process can be very challenging for all the crews. As Professor Yang mentioned, there is a system level cooperations, rescue teams, landing sites, life support system, the capsule itself, and all of things has to work together along with the TT&C teams and everything. So it's a collective effort for a whole team, a team collect. The effort.
Professor Yang, do you expect the next manned mission to be much different from this one?
Exactly. That's the, as we have already discussed, the Shenzhou-12 and the Shenzhou-13 missions belong to the technology verification phase.
Right.
But the Shenzhou-14 will be the first manned mission during the construction phase. And just during this mission, the Shenzhou-14 crew will monitor the docking of the Wentian module and the Mengtian module, and also will be witness of the transfer of the 2 modules from the front docking port to the side berthing port. So this procedure will be the most critical part for the construction of China's space station, and so you can see how important it is for the Shenzhou-14 crew. And the next historical moment will be, as we have already discussed, the turnover of the Shenzhou-15 crew and the Shenzhou-14 crew. At that moment, we'll break another record to have 6 astronauts, 6 Chinese astronauts in outer space simultaneously. So this will be also very, very important for us in the future.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot to look forward to this year. But by the time China really completes its own space station, what can we expect to happen in the space station when all of the preparation is out of the way, when that station is operational. We talked about international cooperation. That's a long way off. Help us imagine and picture what's going to happen in China's now completed space station going beyond 2022. Professor Yang first.
Yes, first, that's together with the cooperation with UNOSA, or the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, the China Manned Space Agency and UNOSA has already selected 9 experiments, 9 proposals raised from 17 countries. So in the future, after construction, all these instruments of these experiments will brought to the station by the Tianzhou cargo ships and will be performed by our Chinese astronauts on the station. So you can very frequently see the joint experiments with other countries. And also, just at this moment, Mr. Matthias Maurer and German astronauts is now orbiting the Earth in the International Space Station. And several days later, Samantha Cristoforetti, an Italian girl, will also go to the International Station. But the special point is that both this boy and this girl has been trained in China several years before in the rescue training in the Shandong province on the sea. And the more amazing thing is that these 2 persons can speak Chinese. So in the future, maybe not these 2 persons, but we can see that the foreign astronauts will visit our Tiangong space station via the Shenzhou spaceship. So what I mentioned will be the second level cooperation. And the third level, technically speaking, is also possible, which means manned spacecraft or a cargo spacecraft launched from other countries and docked to China space station. Technically speaking, it is also possible because we know that the docking mechanism we choose is called APAS, Androgynous Peripheral Attach System, which follows the international standard. So for other countries, they only need some small technical change to adapt China's docking system, and at this case, they can dock with China space station. I hope this will happen in the future. And also, in the future, after we have already discussed the China space station has a T-shaped configuration. But in the future, it is also extendable. It can have a secondary core module with multiple other docking ports and berthing ports. So it is possible to, in the future, if we have the second core module, we will have the capability to have more experimental modules connected to the station. Maybe one module will be made by other countries. But technically speaking, it's also possible.
But then when China first designed the space station, there must be sort of a limit to how far it can extend, right? So eventually, what's the sort of ultimate shape that it could look like? When you say with all these
currently, it is called a T-shape. In the future, it is called a Chinese word gun-shaped.
Okay, I see. Two horizontal.
So at that moment, it will be a combination, a complex about 180 tons. With 6 modules more than 22 tons. So in this case, we can have a module, possibly speaking, from other countries. So we hope that it will also happen. I can still remember in 2014, during the Congress of the Association of Space Explorers of Organization of Astronauts, the foreign astronauts asked Mr. Yang Liwei a question: will China name its space station as the ISS-2? Mr. Yang Liwei said, it is not important to what its name is. It is important to have international cooperation.
That's a concept China has always insisted on.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, bear with me here on our program. Thank you. And Beijing Aerospace Control Center has declared the success of the Shenzhou-13 mission. The re-entry capsule touched down at Dongfeng landing site at 9:56 a.m. The medical examination showed the 3 taikonauts were all in good conditions. The mission was launched on October 16, 2021, carrying 3 taikonauts to China's Tiangong space station. Their 183-day sojourn in space makes a new national record. China says the successive mission signifies the completion of the verification phase of the key technologies of Tiangong space station. Soon, China will begin the construction phase of the space station.
China's space station development has landed numerous milestones in the past few months, and more are expected as it heads to the next stage in intensity. Sun Ye reports.
As the Shenzhou-13 crew winds down their 6-month assignment and ride home, it would also be mission complete for the first stage of China's space station development, the stage of key technology verification.
In a stage of key technology verification, we've tested our technologies that will employ in following phases. For example, regeneration and life support technologies, large assembly management technologies, EVA technologies. Everything has been fully and effectively tested. By now, I give it 100 out of 100.
But the next stage of the space station development, or the assembly phase, is expected to be another major test. Not least because 2 space lab modules are joining the Tianhe core module later this year.
The assembly stage will be challenging, even with all technologies vetted. There will be many first-time attempts, for example, in orbit transition for space modules, and new attempts to move cargo out of the station for construction without taikonauts going out.
But Bo says those challenges will be sorted out with help from the ground.
We're building the digital space station and an electric space station to go with the one in orbit. With them, we can first try out the mission in a digital and electric space station and minimize risk in real life. And as the digital space station could be flying in company with the one in orbit, we can anticipate risks and take measurements accordingly in advance.
When China's space station is completed around the end of this year, it will be a massive spacecraft stack weighing around 100 metric tons. It will also be able to host 6 astronauts together for a short period of time. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
Let us come back to our studio guests here. Mr. Xu, I was going to ask you about China's promise for international cooperation in the future, because China has maintained this is not just about the Chinese and their pride. They want to, when the International Space Station retires, China's Tiangong will be the only working space station out there in space. China wants to make it a beneficial endeavor for all of mankind. How will China continue to do that?
Well, the International Space Station is due to complete its mission 2024. Could be possibly extended for a period of time, but the Chinese space station is what we call a platform in outer space, a platform for scientific studies, platform for astronauts to have activities on board, and platform for international cooperation, of course. Like Professor Yang mentioned, we have already used the United Nations as a platform to call for announcement for opportunities to cooperate on board the mission. And 8 or 9 experiments have already been selected. Second phase will have the completion of the station. As you perspective, the station completion means the beginning of international cooperation and more extensive cooperation with other spacefaring nations. Like Professor Yang mentioned, the docking pod has been internationally standard, and we're using the facility not only for international cooperation, but also the platform for future experiments for enhancing people's life on Earth. For example, the medical platform that using the microgravity environment, we can do a lot of medical medicines and for that is not possible on Earth. For example, the gravity is affecting so much crystallization of proteins and many other factors, but only on board the microgravity environment can you have that platform to be helpful for medical purpose. So that can also improve people's life on Earth. And remember that space station is not the only activity we have in China for space. We also have lunar and Mars missions, and also navigations, remote sensing, and telecommunication satellites are orbiting on Earth. All of these are improving our life on Earth and our understanding of the universe. So many things that we can do, even in preparation of our lunar missions, our future manned mission to the lunar surface and Mars surface, we can use the platform to do many things. So there are good potentials for the Chinese space station.
And another thought, and something that we've already been seeing and China hasn't ruled out, is the possibility of commercial space flights in the future, and possibly even to China's space station. So That's something that I guess you'll have to have a lot of money for, so start saving up for, gentlemen.
50 million for US now.
That's right.
Yeah, let's see if that'll get less costly in the future. Mr. Xu, Professor Yang, thank you so much for your expertise, and thank you for making this less nervous-wracking for all of us here. Appreciate it. Thank you. And Yang, I believe with that we come to the end of our special program on the Shenzhou-13's very successful return home back to Earth.
And it was a very successful wrap-up, and we'll leave you now with the highlights of their 183 days in space, and of course from takeoff to their successful return home. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Zhai Zhigang.
I'm Zheng Shi. Thank you so much.
下周发射目标，北斗2号伸缩正常。神舟13号载人自带感觉，好飞人，身体状态良好，完毕。
落点纬度北纬41度39分11秒，北纬41度39分11秒。
我是神舟13号，我已安全着陆，返回舱动力。